Okay, so we're now recording. I had started up and saying a few things about Cosmobiology Institute before Starlene reminded me to record. So here we are on April 27th, 2025. We have these programs about every 2 months to share some research that's going on. We have Michele and Starlene going to share their research with primarily using extreme case sampling, what it does not do, how it opens doors, what you can do with it, how you can leverage it, and how it can help us better understand what astrology is and how it works. So I'm really excited to have both of them here. They've done an elaborate job, as you will see just from the opening slide, the attention and that they've given to this. It's going to be a wonderful presentation. Thank you so much for joining us. You can put in the chat where you live. Is always fun to see where people are. We typically have fairly small groups, 20, 30, 40 people show up, and um, small but diverse. Usually there's people from most continents are here, which is wonderful. Um, and so, yeah, share where you are. Some people are starting to type in. I'm here in Cincinnati, and Michele, you're in upstate New York, and
Yes.
Starlene is in South Florida.
Yeah.
So, um, yeah, and we have another board member here, Christopher, as well. So welcome to all of you. Let me give you a short introduction to Starlene and Michele. Oh, thanks for typing in where you guys are from. It's fun. If you open up the chat, you can see we have a
Mhm.
Canadian. Yay!
Yay.
Anybody from another country gets special treatment around here. We go
Mm.
outside of the United States. Yeah, two Canadians, one from Vancouver Island. I guess, or that's, I guess, still part of Washington. But anyway, um, and Nelson's here from Portugal. Wonderful. Okay, let me introduce Michele and Starlene, say a few words about them, and let's get this rolling. Um, so Starlene has done extensive research in astrology on fixed stars. She's currently doing research on ADHD. She's setting up a site to collect data. So she's done a lot of research in the past. She's involved now. And this is research not just like, oh, I'm looking at their charts and I saw this person has this and this person has that. We're using modern research methods. We're controlling for all kinds of issues, selection bias and blah, blah, blah. We use statistics sometimes. So this is modern research methods she's involved in. Starlene also creates a lot of websites, and she's going to be taking over the work on the Cosmobiology Institute website. Um, and she also in Cosmobiology Institute, Starlene, Angela, and Michele, they're like a dynamic trio. They work together on lots of things that are happening in CI, working together, the collaboration, the enthusiasm that we have within the board, within people attending. And we have these programs, special lectures about every other month. And we also have the monthly research meetings that Christopher and I host on the fourth Tuesday of each month. And so this is our roughly bi-monthly special program. All of this is free, all of it's donated to help move this forward. Um, and yeah, and Michele, she got her Bachelor of Science degree in 1996. She specialized in childhood brain development. She's taught in both private and public schools. Um, so she's been involved in school accreditation, school administration, working with children, also in the military education, and she's done volunteer work for combat veterans, etc. And both of them have graduated from educational programs that I give, so they're both work in the area of vibrational astrology, and they're both highly intuitive. And that's an interesting thing is that Einstein played violin for fun, as a hobby. Like you can be a physicist and play a musical instrument. That doesn't shock people. But when people hear that, oh, this person's a medium or a channel or tarot reader, and they're doing very sophisticated technical research, they go, well, how could that happen? Why not? So we have two living, breathing examples right here. There's not necessarily any contradiction or confusion. I think they kind of go hand in hand myself. But anyway, um, well, that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I've probably taken up too much time already. We don't want to hear from me. We want to hear from them. So, Starlene and Michelle, the floor is yours. And oh, by the way, I will be monitoring, Michelle and Starlene will be monitoring your comments. They're going to have several short breaks. This is a 3 hours. I hope you guys stick through this. It's going to be exciting. We're going to learn a lot of stuff. And periodically, we will go into the chat and, answer your questions and topics and things you mentioned. So the chat is there. I recommend using the chat as much as you want to share your thoughts, and sooner or later we'll pick up on it. At the very end, the last 15 minutes to 30 minutes, whatever, will be purely questions and answers, and there will be time periodically. And we'll have, like I said, several short breaks. It's going to be, a full 3 hours. Okay, I'm done. Ladies, the floor is yours.
Thank you so
Thank
much,
you.
Santino. Yes. Do you want to start, Michelle, or?
Sure. So I just wanted to say thank you, everyone, for joining us here today. And as always, we are so passionate about the Cosmobiology Institute and really want to see this get off the ground and running, and so it is. Starlene and I have worked very hard over the last 2 months creating this presentation. As Santino said, chime in, use the chat. We will be monitoring that. But our topic today is this is called Igniting Your Cosmic Curiosity, and we hope that we are doing just that for you today. And we'll get started here.
Yes. So we wanted to explain how we do extreme case sampling, and we wanted to make it simple to understand, but extreme case sampling is not simple. It's something you can really dig yourself into. And so we decided Venus and Pluto would be an interesting topic to, an interesting thing to extreme case sample. So welcome to the Cosmic Case Files, and we're going to put Venus and Pluto under investigation today. So this is going to be sort of a conversation between us, and like Michelle said, feel free to use the chat because we would like to hear what you have to say, or if something doesn't make sense. We want to ignite you. We want to excite you because we think that this is really exciting, and there's so much to astrology to investigate that, it's endless. We could all be doing it all day long. So thank you all for joining, and welcome to our Cosmic Case Styles.
An interesting little thing here too, just a little side note, this is just, cosmic divine timing, divine order. But Starlene and I literally have Venus Pluto transits that are going on right now, which we didn't even really think about before we chose the topic. So we're living it too, which, hey, that's
yes.
fun.
And funny enough, I have a Venus, a transiting Pluto on my Venus conjunct, and you have it opposition your Venus. So it's funny that we're doing this at the same time. But
yes,
as cosmic timing is, it's all about vibration, right? And alignment.
Right.
So we're going to decode data here, Michelle. And so your thoughts on Venus Pluto were things such as love and power. Is that what you're thinking that's going to come out from us? We're going to have this
yes.
Yeah.
Obsession, love, power, we're going to decode. And as we mentioned earlier too, we're walking everyone here through the process of how to do extreme case sampling. And we're going to break it down into these tiny little like baby dance steps for everyone, so that everyone attending this workshop today, you will know how to do this on your own. That is our goal by the end of this presentation, is that you will be able to do your own extreme case sampling and whatever it is that you choose, and also using free tools. So that's exciting.
Yeah, we wanted to use the tools that were accessible to everybody online. And so we obviously can use more sophisticated tools, and you're welcome to do so, but this is what our methodology was, so that we are making it easy and accessible for you to do as well. So in extreme case sampling, extreme case sampling is something that it's not just for astrologers. Astrologers adopted it actually from scientists. That's something that scientists use different methodologies in extreme case sampling, which we'll talk about a little bit so you can understand where we're coming from. But basically, in a nutshell, extreme case sampling in astrological research is unlocking these hidden patterns that we have, just like the slide says, but we're investigating it. We're opening up the hood to understanding what's going on. And yes, there are fine nuances because we're looking at one thing, the Venus-Pluto connection, which is what we'll talk about. But there's nuances to it. So we're going to try to dig through that and see what we can find and understand so that you can look at your own study. And there's different ways in which you can do the extreme case sampling, different ways in which you can do it, which we'll also go through too. So, all right. So our case files are here. Are you ready, Michele?
I'm ready.
You're ready for our case files. And we decided the pinky purple is also very Venus Pluto looking. So hopefully you like our little theme here. All right, Michele.
So let's get ready for a celestial whodunit. What's really going on in these charts? So in these charts, we broke them down, as you'll see as we progress through this workshop today. We're looking at Venus-Pluto conjunctions and Venus-Pluto trines, and we're trying to see, is there a difference in the energetic dynamic that's going on there? But we wanted to do something fun with this, almost like astrological archaeology. We're going to dig really deep. And we're going to play a little game here. We're going to make it fun.
Yeah, because in reality, the investigation we're doing is fun. If you get into it and you're, one of those people that like digging and understanding, you'll enjoy that investigation. So we'll tell you now what we're going to be uncovering in this journey of our investigation here. And hopefully you'll think it's fun too. So extreme case sampling is a type of sampling, like I mentioned, where scientists use it as well. And this is where it came from. Astrologers can use it also to crack the hidden chart patterns, if you will. That's a cute way to say it, but we're looking at different clues and cosmic suspects. That's what we're going to be talking about in the slides today. I will say that these words are cute words that we chose to describe our slides. Of course, clues, we're looking at what exactly are we seeing? What exactly is Venus and Pluto conjunct? What does that mean? That's the question. Venus and Pluto trine, that's the other question. Are they similar, or what is going on there? That's our question. So we did use the words clues and cosmic suspects just as a cute, charming way to make this a fun, a fun presentation here. So, Michele, you want to take this part?
Yep. So our featured mystery, we're using Venus and Pluto and the energy dynamics there. And we hope that you are all along here to join this research and cosmic revolution. Extreme case sampling, it's like really zooming in on the loudest signals and astrological data. So it's not almost, it is the same thing. It's like we're putting everything under the microscope. We're going to blow it up and we're going to see all of the tiny little fine threads in this tapestry that has been woven energetically and cosmically. And we're studying individuals who show amplified traits with this Venus-Pluto. So we did not cherry pick any of this data whatsoever. We let the data drive us. This is a very smart and systematic method to look at these patterns that are hidden in plain sight. So when we think about Venus-Pluto traits or personality features that we may think in our minds that they have, they may not always show up or express outwardly. These may be things that express inwardly, but we're putting everything under the microscope and putting it to the test. So really do just this. I love this cute little image that we found here. Imagine Sherlock Holmes, but armed with an ephemeris. And that's exactly what it is that we are doing here.
Yes.
So scientists have cracked genetic mysteries using extreme case sampling. When you see this ECS, obviously that's what it stands for. And now we're cracking the cosmic one. So we actually took this from science. Geneticists use this in phenotype sampling, and we've just taken it and moved it on over to astrology, and it works. It really does work, as Santino always so beautifully shows us, consistently and continuously, and it's really an amazing process. Um, but yeah, have you ever been curious about what makes a musical prodigy, what shows up astrologically for them, or in terms of vibration, or an ultra marathon runner? That all starts with extreme case sampling too. Starlene's working on this ADHD project, which she's digging her hands in and using this method as well, and it's absolutely amazing. Um, but in extreme case sampling, we examine the outliers. And what we mean by outliers are these are the people that are like so extreme or out of the norm. I hate to use, but I don't at the same time. If we can think of Mr. Musk, Mr. Elon Musk, like absolute brilliant genius, right? Creating all these things. He's not maybe considered part of the normal population of people. And we would consider him, and just using him as an example of what an outlier would be. And we don't mean outlier in terms of person or personality, but in terms of their traits that they do express. So we use these outliers to uncover underlying sources. And this approach and extreme case sampling, it's very efficient, it's focused, and I love this little line here, delightfully nerdy. Yes, delightfully nerdy. So how are we
Yes.
going to connect this to astrology?
So we
So
connect this to astrology. The astrological connection, as we've talked about, is Venus and Pluto. And how we do this is what we call an energetic DNA blueprint. So again, cute way to explain it, but it really does explain it. And it uses the idea of how scientists use it as well. Like Michele mentioned, scientists use it in phenotype sampling with DNA. We're just doing the same thing, but we're doing it with astrology, right? So we're looking at these sequences of connections between planets and these particular patterns that we're looking at, but you can use it in two different ways, with looking at the planetary aspects and seeing what's going on with those people, like we're doing today, Venus and Pluto people, or like Michele had mentioned, all the baseball players or piano players, and what do they have in common? So we're kind of looking at it in the opposite way. So you can use it in different ways. Extreme case sampling, the main thing is you're looking for a specific extreme. In our case, we're doing the Venus Pluto. So our charts really are brimming with many hints, encrypted messages that have, and they're contained in symbolic glyphs. As we know, we all have these beautiful glyphs that we come to understand. And when we see where they connect and they make sense to us, this gives us insight in ways that we don't have just by looking at the chart very, very simply. It's so much more than just looking at the signs, if you will. So this brings us to today's question. And when we do research, we always need a question. We always need a specific, clear question. And our question is, what's the energetic difference between Venus conjunct Pluto and Venus trine Pluto? So that's our question. Is there one? But before we get to answering this question, we have to kind of think about what this would be like, because we already do have some knowledge of Venus on its own or Pluto on its own with a trine as well. So we are vibrational astrologers. Of course, you don't have to look at it from the same perspective, but my encouragement is that if you do research, you should be consistent. So whatever your method is, stay consistent with that as you're trying to uncover what something else means. It's like building blocks. You want to know the pieces and what they mean, like Venus and Pluto, before you can know what they mean together and then build on that. So that's what we're doing, since we already know Venus and Pluto, but we want to understand what that means. We're going to share that with you. It's kind of like we're taking these two strong powers, Venus and Pluto, and it's like lightning versus a candlelight. They're very different, but they're both, you know, something similar at the same time. So this is the excitement of extreme case sampling in astrology. So let's dive head first into this mystery.
This is fast,
So
it's focused, and it's fun. So yeah,
Mhm.
let's get the party started.
Yes.
So we,
Yeah.
like I said earlier, we let the data lead us. We're not trying to prove anything here. This is an important piece. We're really just trying to improve our understanding of astrology and discovering along the way. So we're never trying to prove anything. We're trying to improve it.
Improve it or understand, right?
Yes.
And in that, sometimes we have things come up, and this is something that's so important as a researcher, is to be open to something coming up that you don't see. You were like, oh no, I didn't expect that. But you have to be, because otherwise you could miss it completely. And I know that we've done this with each other, you know, Michele, Santina, we've all done this, and this, like, I hear, that's why doing it research in a group gives you a bigger perspective, because, you know, Michele might pick something up, Santina might pick something up, and Christopher might pick something up that makes me go, wow, I didn't see it from that perspective. So know that you can find something different than what you're anticipating, being open to it, but also keeping, you know, your ideas of like, this is where I'm putting my building blocks from. And this will give you some, you know, surprises. Sometimes you'll be surprised in the ways that you're able to express this and find this expressed. And sometimes it's a little dramatic, which is what we were hoping for. And we'll see if that really does play out with the Venus Pluto in this presentation. We wanted to find a little drama if it was there, but we were hoping for it. So yeah, and we're also open to any unexpected twists that might come up as well. So what is so exciting about extreme case sampling is that we're using the people with the most extreme, meaning the tightest orb aspect between Venus and Pluto in the conjunction and the trine. So we're looking for that. We're looking at the database that we have, and we're not cherry picking like Michele said. We have to keep it real. We have to keep the people real. We have to keep the stories real. We read biographies. We understand. This is the part of the digging that I really love, because I will get like a little like obsessive with it. I'm not a TV person or anything like that. So like, I'll just, oh, I'm researching so-and-so, and I'm like digging it out, and then I'm just collecting the information so I can understand them better, you know? So this is it. We were using real people, real stories, and real charts. And this is important because we're not just cherry picking this person. I like them, so, you know, I want to investigate him. There's nothing wrong with doing that either, but in the extreme case sampling, it's important to let the data speak for us.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So in this extreme case sampling, we're testing some old school ideas, and sometimes those get tossed to the curb. Sorry, not sorry about that. It gives us a new language for old archetypes, and it makes astrology feel alive, dynamic, data-driven, and daring. And that's exactly what this does, as Starlene just so beautifully expressed just before this slide as well. So this is exciting stuff. And you know, sometimes when we begin the research, we always start with you know, our hypothesis, which we will talk a little bit more about as we progress this afternoon. But sometimes we have an idea, and then the data shows us when we get into the research, it is absolutely nothing of what it was that we are expecting. And Starlene, I'm sure that's happened to you before in previous research as well. I know it did for me when I did the eating disorders, like 23 vibe. What the heck, man? So you have to go with it.
Yeah, it's definitely happening as we're building the model for the ADHD people. The certain group that I cut off to be the first model. It's interesting because we're seeing the differences between the people that were hyperactive and the people that were more inattentive. Not to deviate our conversation here, but it's a perfect example of that. And I wasn't sure that that was really going to happen. So it's very interesting, and you never know what exactly might be happening. That's why keeping your mind open and that,
Absolutely.
converse with us. That's what CI is about. We want to like bring this to everyone here, and share this with you guys. So we touched a little bit about this already. The two different types of extreme case sampling that we would be doing in the astrological model. So we'll just to clarify what those two types are here. This first type is extreme, actually can't read the top of it. Okay, extreme configurations. So that means people that show a specific astrological pattern very strongly. For example, our Venus Pluto, Venus conjunct Pluto, and Venus trine Pluto, and we used an orb of 30 minutes or less. So the people that were super tight, that's what we wanted. And we want that because using vibrational astrology, the model that we're using, the tighter the orb, that means that stronger it is. You can't get more than 0, right? So that's the best. You always want to do it as tightly as possible when we're using at least the VA model, because it makes sense that way. And that's what we find to have a lot of confidence when something is, tightly orbed. So the second one is extreme life expressions. So this is people who have these interesting things in their life, that interesting biographies that have a theme of something going on. Like Michele mentioned, the people that were runners or that have a specific theme going on in their life or that they've achieved. It could be scientists like my ADHD. I know, Michele, you've done eating disorders. Could be anything like that. And so my point in telling you this, and I think this is also a good point to bring up here too, is that don't make sure you think big, because you can always figure out how to connect with groups of people that will be able to help you in understanding, like how to do this type of or what to do this type of research on. For instance, my ADHD research, there was not a lot of people in the database, so I thought outside of the box and started collecting data myself. Is it the perfect way to do it? Probably not, but it's going to give me different results. But is it going to work? So far, we're getting there, So my point is, don't think too small. Think outside of the box, because then you can come up with clarity that maybe you didn't have before. And this is, talking about the people with something specific about them. And we study these people with these extreme qualities, and they come up so that we can understand what the astrology is doing. It's like we're looking at it backwards from the other extreme case sampling system that we were talking about.
So there's two different types of research. There's the quantitative and qualitative. So the quantitative research emphasizes on the collection and analysis, and it's numerical in nature. So there's the numerical data that we use to uncover patterns, it validates theories, and it generates predictions. For our research today, we are showing you the other variety, which is qualitative. And that qualitative research, it delves a bit more into language, into experiences, into meanings and concepts. And by utilizing non-numerical data such as interviews, observations, and open-ended responses. So we did this as qualitative. If we were to do a quantitative research, we would, we'd be running a t-test, and we would be using that numerical data. We're showing you a simpler variety today in the qualitative. So this type of research, it centers on the individuals, and we're focused here, laser pointed on that Venus conjunct Pluto and the Venus trine Pluto. And as Starlene said earlier, we're using a 30-minute orb or less, which is almost exact. Like, this is extreme.
Yes.
Wait until you even see the data. It was like 0 minute, 0 degree orb, like exact. So here's our hypothesis, the Venus-Pluto puzzle.
You can't get more exact than exact.
Nope.
Okay, so we scheduled for a little break here. If it's a natural pause in the slides, if you want to take, I don't know how long we were going to do the break for. And if you have any questions that you are wondering how we're doing things, we can feel free to write them in the chat, and then we can answer them for you as well. So how long should we do the break for? 5 minutes or so?
I think
It's
5
12.
minutes.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
5 minutes is more than enough because we're
Mhm.
really just starting into this. Why don't we just take a 2 or 3 minute break? And
That
during that
works
two or
too.
3 minutes, attendees, you could type anything into the chat if you have any questions or thoughts. Um, yeah, let's just take a 2 or 3 minute break and we'll start up.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, has it been 2 minutes? I
I
didn't
think
keep
so.
track.
I
Think
think
so.
so. Let's see. Yep. So
Okay,
it sure has.
yeah, so Blake has a question. I wanted to underscore 2 points and then
Mhm.
we bring up Blake's question and see if anybody else has a question. One is, you mentioned the distinction of quantitative versus qualitative. And so the quantitative is numerical, qualitative is descriptive. And so this is qualitative research because you're describing what these Venus Pluto people are like. The other distinction, this is the one I wanted to go over, was the two kinds of extreme case sampling. You know, in astrology, we have a correlation of what's going on in the sky and, say, somebody's personality or behavior, right? So there's two things. And so what you're saying is that you can do either end of that. You could see the extreme astrology, like who has Venus, Pluto the strongest, or who's the greatest athlete, right? I mean, just to kind of underscore the simplicity of that. Just want to kind
Correct.
of, review that idea. And then I had a question about the orbs. Like you said, you're using a 30-minute orb, but actually you're only going to pick out the ones that are strongest. or are you going all the way out to 30 minutes?
We went out to
We
30
didn't,
minutes.
You looked at
yeah,
everybody all the way out to 30 minutes.
Oh, we looked at the top 15
Okay,
and
so
broke down the
really,
top three.
if I understand this correctly, it really doesn't matter where you set the orb because you're only picking the top 15 anyway.
right. When we
Correct.
did it in the Astro Data Bank, it asked us for an orb. So we only wanted to look at 30 minutes or less. So that's what we did in terms of setting the orb.
Mhm.
But you're correct. We don't really, you don't have
Yeah,
to
you're
have an
not really
orb.
using that because if you would have said
We
the orb
just,
is 3 degrees, you're still picking only the
yes,
top 15.
yes, yep.
So that was
Correct.
just like what you told the program, but it really doesn't matter because you
You're
were,
Mhm.
right. You're right about that.
Mhm.
okay, I
Mhm.
just want to understand that. And then Blake has a question about, a really good question, actually, like, I'll read his question. I was wondering about the trine being chosen. Like, why trines? Well, why didn't you do oppositions or squares? I mean, we could kind of understand conjunction. We kind of start with that. So that's a good question. Why did you pick trines in addition to conjunctions?
I guess we wanted to see like what the soft aspect was going to do as opposed to the hard, you know? It's kind of like a little curious question there.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you know when you do research, you just do what you want to do, and sometimes we don't even know why we do what we want to do.
Yeah.
Like trines appeal to you as an alternative to conjunctions. Did you have any
It was
additional thoughts,
random.
Starlene, about yeah, kind of random? You know, sometimes
it
people
was,
think everything with research has to be like you're a robot and everything's got to be logical. But
Yeah.
no, I mean you just the logical part is the way you analyze it carefully and cleanly, but your inspirations can come. I mean, Einstein got inspirations from his dreams, you know, so um,
right. And when we
yeah,
were talking about which to do, we were thinking about what could potentially have the most impact just without doing the research. I mean, we know beyond this, of course, this is just example research, but what might be equally contrasting but interesting. So we thought, well, if something, it could be the conjunction being that they're working together, and then the trine making it smoother, flow better. So that was kind of how our conversation went, but understandably we could have done all of the aspects really, or looked at vibrations. There's so
okay,
many different things to look
okay. So it
at.
just sounded like an interesting aspect. No, like clear, singular, logical. It just felt like a good idea. And by the way, Blake mentions he has Venus sextile Pluto with a 9-minute orb. So you know, this is one of the fun things of research. Like, oh, I have this, or you know, my daughter has this, or whatever. So yeah. Um, okay, that's all I see in the questions.
Okay, so
All
let's
right.
go. Michelle, do you want to?
Sure. So
Okay.
how would the Venus-Pluto aspect outwardly express itself? And this was our main question, which goes back to our hypothesis. And we're looking for those who light up the room or set it on fire. Remember, we were talking about the lightning strike and the candle. Um, so are Venus and Pluto, are they two love stories or are they two power plays? So here we have literally the god and goddess of Venus and Pluto.
Yes.
So to get our answer, we first need to look at the energy process of Venus-Pluto conjunctions and trines. So we're just going to break it down into just these very simple things. As vibrational astrologers, we understand that Venus is our attraction to beauty. Simple, very simple, right? And Pluto is obsessive and compulsive energy. And that obsessive and compulsive energy is most often transformative as well. In the simplest term of conjunctions, we know that they are a basic energy expression and a driving force in the person's life. So it's kind of like astro soup. We're gonna mix together the Venus and the Pluto, and you put them together, and what do you get? Obsessive, compulsive, love, and beauty, or beauty, attraction to beauty. The trines, as we know, are a smoother aspect. This is a soft aspect. There's an unrestricted energy that needs to flow, and this is like a smooth, harmonious energy flow, which is perfect. So here now we're going to start to break down all of the steps. This is where we're going to dig in, and this is going to be the fun part here. So here are the steps that we took to dig around and to begin our research. So we are actually showing you a method that is free to use. We wanted to be sure to bring everyone to something that was, that was accessible, that anyone can get their hands on. We're going to show you how to do it in Astro Databank. This was actually a little bit of a learning curve for me because I use Sirius. But it's fine. It's perfect. It works just as well. Just has its own little nuances. So if you go into the Astro Databank website and type right into Astro Databank, in that little search bar in the top corner, I type in research and it will bring you to this research page. But the first thing that we need to do is we need to select our rating. So as researchers, we always use AA data. So we want things that are very precise and very accurate. You'll see the different ratings that are there, A data, B data, C data. Those ratings are just listed as, is this a verified time? This is the exact time of birth. Yes, this was listed on a birth certificate. B data might be, or A, like, hey, mom or grandma doesn't remember down to the minute, but hey, it was somewhere around, 3 p.m. Anyway, we're going to use the AA data. This is research. And then we're going to go through and we're going to select them. So in these little selections that you have here on Astro Databank, you see these highlighted check marks that we have. We're just bringing you step by step through the process. Our rating, AA, our aspect, we're choosing the orb of Astro Databank gives you 1 degree. You can say 0, but it will actually bring you to 1 degree, which is fine, just the smallest thing that is there. And we're also choosing the aspect. So here we're just going to start with the conjunction because we're researching conjunctions and trines. We actually had to go through this process twice. So go ahead and select the conjunction, the orb, and now we're going to choose what it is that we want to plug in here. So as we know, we're looking at Venus and Pluto. We're selecting our objects. We go here, left column, we have Venus, right column, we have Pluto, and then the aspect there in the middle. So, and then it generates, literally, look at this. How cool is that? 1.46 seconds it took for Astro Databank. This is the power of modern technology, right? So 1.46 seconds, it generates this list for us of people that have the strongest Venus-Pluto conjunctions. We highlighted them here. So this gives us birth data, their dates, birth dates, a little short snippet of who they are, what it is that they brought to this world. Very beautiful. This is just a little screenshot sample of what Astro Databank will bring to you. So unfortunately in Astro Databank, it doesn't organize the data by orb. Do we have it was like 359, I think it was. So you have to kind of sift through them like the astrological archaeologists that we were, or you can put them in if you have another program. We fed it into Sirius and it listed them by strength, numerically and in order. But hey, we have this free tool to use. So we went through and organized that way. So after we gather our data, we went through, and this is really critically important for research, is organization. Now I know that may not be everyone's forte, but it's a very important thing. So we tracked everything, and if you want to use Google Sheets or an Excel spreadsheet, and you can put in there whatever it is that you choose. If you saw my spreadsheets for my eating disorders research, your brain would probably explode. Mine explodes looking back on it now. But it's really important to be very particular and very precise in what it is that you're tracking. And you can
Yeah,
keep it simple, doesn't have to be anything. This is a super simple example, just of a very, basic Excel spreadsheet. You can see how I organized things at the top. And like I said, you can put anything it is that you choose in here. So this is just a little snippet of the Venus trine Pluto. I tracked the orb, some biographical information on these top 3 people, a few notes, keywords, aspects, whatever. There's no wrong way to do this. Just do it.
right,
Keep yourself
right.
organized.
Yeah, it gives you,
Mhm.
the more information you put in here, then you start to see the rhythms and you start to see the keywords and the things that are related to what you're looking at start to pop up and you keep seeing over and over. That's how you start understanding what it is that you're researching. So this is a really important part to the process here, understanding the things that people bring to the table. And we're not just looking at the biographies, we look at interviews, we look at if it's a musician or an artist, what kind of art do they do? What kind of music do they play? Things like that, because a lot of times people will express something through their through the art. For instance, the most strongest Regulus Sun person, when I did Regulus research, the one with the strongest conjunction, he used to paint a beautiful artist who painted pictures of the sunset or the sunrise, and it was just gorgeous. And I'm like, this is so Regulus Sun. It was like, set the tone, so you can see that in what the people are doing. And that's why I say, when earlier, looking broad, looking at the big picture, sometimes zooming into what's going on underneath the hood of what's going on driving them, and also what are they displaying on the outside. So you kind of, that's the archaeology astrology we were talking about. Yep. And this is the way you document it all. I always like to make sure links are there so that I can refer back to it as well.
Mhm.
Okay. So this is the fun part. Like I mentioned, we're just researching everyone's lives. We're looking at each one. And sometimes you will get a list of people. I think this is important to know. And the first person will have very little biography information. In fact, one thing we didn't mention here is that we started, when we told Astrodata Bank, just start, I think it was like 1850 to modern time. Like, we wanted the listing of those people. There are people that are in the database that are much older, but usually we don't have enough biographical information on them to be able to use them. So if you come upon a person like that, you're not cherry picking by saying, okay, I can't use this person. You don't have enough information, you just don't. So you go to the next person. But that's not cherry picking. If you were just to say, I don't like this person, that's cherry picking. We don't do that. But we say, okay, this person has literally, they just say 1 or 2 lines in Wikipedia. There's no other information. I put them to the side. That's fine. And then you go to the next one. And that's why you have to kind of dig through all of these. But it is like a treasure chest. You start seeing these patterns. The first person that you see for whatever, project you're working on, you don't know if that's really that. But then you look at the second person, you're like, oh, wow, they're expressing this, with different things in their life, but it's the same expression. So that's the beauty of it, is we start seeing that as you dig around, and we'll show you examples of what that looks like as we go through these people that we are sharing with you today. So as I mentioned, art, music, film, interviews, even quotes. We have found people that talk in their quotes that are famous quotes that really talk about, just they'll say something that really just makes them look like just what you're expecting them to think. They add to your case files. You get your files get a little bigger when you start looking through all these things. And of course, remembering that we use the tightest orb possible. We don't cherry pick. We go from the strongest, and we go all the way down to the weakest, or not weakest, but the least tight orb person. And those would be our top 15 people that we look at. You can look at 10, you can look at 100 if you want. That's a lot, but 10 or 15 people is going to be plenty for you to get the idea of. That's been our findings anyway. That's been our experience with it. Yeah.
The theme seems to quickly emerge once you start getting in, even past like the top 3 to 5. But yeah, be
Yes.
thorough and dig through and
dig
Get
through,
in there.
exactly. And so we're getting our hands dirty in the archives, which is fun. And we're gonna walk the steps through, and we're gonna talk about all of that. So this is our Venus conjunct Pluto people, right? And so Venus conjunct Pluto, the question is, what did we find? What did we find with these people? Did we find themes of obsession? This is what we're anticipating. Themes of rebirth, intensity, desire, creative power. When we think of the energy process of Venus being what we're attracted to, it's the attraction, the draw, and then Pluto being that obsessive compulsive, like, ooh, I can't let go, I have to hold on. There's something really intense there, and that's what we're expecting, but we're of course open-minded to see what is there. So then we're going to look at our case studies to find out if this is true. Just to recap, the energy processes of Venus is your attraction to beauty, and the energy process of Pluto is obsessive compulsive energy, that drive, the transformation, the depth, the power. These are all these transformation, depth, power, hidden forces, and intensity. Those are potentials. Those are things that often show up, but the energy process itself is that obsessive compulsive. And when I say obsessive compulsive, I think it's also important to emphasize that that's not just that it could be in a negative way. Somebody could be obsessively, driven to play piano and is a master at it. That's very possible too. So it's not necessarily a negative undertone there. And I think that's important in terms of seeing the whole big picture. And then the recap of the energy process of the conjunction is the basic driving force. The two planets are working together. The basic driving force is what's the energy process between the conjunction. So here's our suspect number one. Our suspect number one. So this is Jean Louis Buchernaut. So Jean Louis is the one that had the strongest Venus-Pluto conjunction. So here he is. And he was a French genealogist. He was a journalist. He was an author. He also made contributions to television, and he worked as a columnist for various media outlets. So here he is, Jean Louis. And here is his chart. As you can see, his chart, he has Pluto at 23 degrees and 57 minutes of Leo, and he has Venus at 23 degrees and 58 minutes of Leo. So he's got a 1 minute orb. It's like so tight, very tight. These two planets are really close together. So this is going to be a strong person. We're expecting to see him display Venus conjunct Pluto somewhere in his life. So let's see. So to further put the microscope on Jean Louis, his primary passion is something that we were expecting to see. It's evident by his career in genealogy. So looking at what the history was, that is very, I'm digging into something that I love, that I feel connected to. So there is something in the genealogy exploration that seems to feel very Venus Pluto. We love our family, and we want to dig in and figure out what the heck is going on. Who were these people that I share DNA with? And he uncovers these beautiful narratives by families. This is a tree that he actually drew, which I loved. I wanted to put in here because he would make these beautiful artistic family trees, and he's reflecting the desire to dig beneath the surface, which is what we're expecting to see from him. This is not his main work, but it was something that he was passionate about. He dedicated a lot of his significant part of his professional life to doing research too, which we're expecting as well. Pluto wants to see under the hood. Pluto doesn't want to just, be light at all. It wants to be intense. It wants to know the intensity of something. So he did researching, and he was writing about family history. So the family history is also the depth part we're talking about. So he also, when we were digging through Jean Louis, he has a preservation of legacy. He valued and documented this lineage into these Venusian themes and these connections that he had with other people. I mean, that's very family oriented. He felt passion and love for his family and families in general. Like he did that because he wasn't just digging in his own family history. He was looking, bigger than that. So he also was into public engagement as a journalist and a radio personality, which shows if you're not charming or engaging, it's hard to be on the radio or it's hard to be in the public eye. You need a magnetism or people are just going to glaze over and keep it moving, And so that magnetism is what gets people to them. And that's what he did. He was magnetic to people and got people interested in what he was saying, what he was talking about. So also focusing on the vibrational energy of this, his life expression is very Venus Pluto because of his intense dedication and dedication to uncovering the hidden histories that show very Venus Pluto, which is the energy process of deep emotional need to connect by revealing what is secret, buried, or forgotten. So again, we're seeing what's going on, and this makes sense with our model of vibrational astrology, understanding something that he loves that is deeper than just the surface. So our suspect number 2, which is the second person, we didn't actually have to skip a person in the Venus Pluto here. The first 3 that we're sharing at least is Gabriel Narowitz. And so here's Gabriel, and he is a transformational leader. He shows transformational leadership. Transformational is what we're expecting with the Venus-Pluto energy. So Gabriel shaped the identity of the Second Polish Republic as its first elected president. So I didn't know anything about the politics of ancient or old Poland, but it was interesting because he marked the beginning of a new thing for Poland itself. I read about it as I was digging around to learn about him, but he marked a new progression for Poland itself by his first election. And that's a part of the displaying of, it's not the same Venus Pluto we were looking at in the first person, but it has the same energy of like, I'm transforming something. I'm not just, surface level kind of, hey, nice to meet you, charismatic person. He has transformational energy within him. So his election marked a powerful turning point in the rebirth of Poland, embodying Poland's themes of a national rebirth and deep societal change. This is Gabriel's chart, his natal chart. As you can see, he's got a 2-minute orb, so he is super tight, orb 2. 11 degrees, 45 minutes, 11 degrees and 47 minutes for Pluto. So tight orbs. I don't know, this picture just makes me think that he looks super Venus Pluto to me when we saw this picture. And, he had a rapid rise to power. These are some themes that we found in are digging around in his biographies. His rise to power was very quick. He was a hydroelectric engineer to the president of Poland in 1922. And this is a huge change. I mean, we're engineers, okay, and then all of a sudden we're president, and we're actually president of a country that's going through transformation. That's huge. That's so Venus Pluto. He was polarizing, though. I don't really know him or have an opinion on that. I just know that he was polarizing. He was backed by people that were minorities and liberals, and he faced a lot of opposition by nationalists. That really also highlights a Venus-Pluto relation to tension. There's potential for tension, and there's potential for like, I don't, the feeling of, I don't care, this is what I believe to be real, and I'm going to push forward to do it, to accomplish it. So he was polarizing. I don't think for the reason just to be polarizing, it was because it's what he believed in. This guy was like, this is me, this is what should be, and whether you like him or not, it's just how he saw it. So he kind of that like vision of something. He did have a tragic end to his life, unfortunately, which it does seem kind of Venus-Pluto, although I wouldn't necessarily, that is definitely Venus-Pluto thing. He was assassinated after, just 5 days after his presidency. Apparently they didn't like him, which shows destructive extremes of Pluto's influence on public people. It's possible that had an influence. I'm not going to pin that completely on it because lots of people have Venus-Pluto conjunction, but this guy did have a very interesting story, and he did display a lot of this Venus-Pluto conjunction energy. So just to wrap up Gabriel, his legacy did last, and it did make an impact. And I think that that's also a very Venus Pluto thing. That's the desire, at least. If it doesn't end up lasting, that's, you know, you can't always help it. But I think the desire is to have significant something deeper to change or to share, something from beneath the surface. So, but his legacy and legacy did last. He modernized Europe's hydroelectric systems and reshaped the economies in Europe, which is very Pluto in action energy. So, and his symbol of division and hope, his short presidency exposed different fractures that were going on within the Polish society and the Polish politics at the time. And what it did, even though he wasn't able to continue on with his journey himself, it did plant seeds of progression and to change. And I think that's very Venus Pluto. You know, Venus Pluto, the idea of even the phoenix comes to mind, you know. So this is just to further go through what went on with Gabriel's life and how it showed a tightly focused Venus Pluto aspect and how it can drive both personal destiny and collective upheaval. His rapid power, really, and tragic ending had Venus Pluto energy mixed in with it. He also had intense relational dynamics, deep societal tensions, and profound transformation through crisis. So that's also not surprising because that Venus Pluto is about that realness. So I believe that, and I think that it demonstrates very well how a specifically strong aspect can shape someone's chart. Now, there's obviously way more going on in everybody's chart than just one particular aspect. In fact, as a vibrational astrologer, I would generally look for 3 planets connecting with each other. We wanted to make this easy, simple, basic. You know, it's not just about the research. Although we did the research, it's more about the methodology in which we're teaching you and showing you as an example. So there's definitely more to the story with everybody here, but this does show up very strongly, which is something we expected, given that these are almost exact orbs. There's 1 and 2 minute orbs. So our third suspect for our Venus-Pluto conjunction is Margaret Crowe. Okay. So here's Margaret Crowe, and she has displays of Venus-Pluto conjunction by survival and emotional transformation, and we'll unpack what that means. So her life was shaped by profound and early loss. She lost both of her parents at age 19, and she survived a torpedo episode from the SS Athena. So she's showing us that she's resilient through traumas and difficulties. She gets herself back up and keeps going. That's the Phoenix, right? I know archetypes are not always what we're looking at. We're looking at energy processes. Well, me being a vibrational astrologer, but archetypes come from the energy process too. So the idea of the Phoenix is very literal in her sense. She has resilience. That's also a very Venus-Pluto thing. She has the ability to have emotional depth and also go through a personal transformation. This is her chart. As you can see, there is another 2 minute orb. So she's a super strong person with the Venus Pluto. And as you can see, we're documenting all the different things. We're looking for specific themes that are not necessarily the exact thing that each one of them is doing, but the energy process that is driving them to do those specific things in their life. And these specific things, for instance, devotion, service, and legacy. This is her and her husband here. She channeled a lot of her emotional strength into a deep devotion and philanthropy. She also built hospitals and supported Alzheimer's research. Interesting research was a theme that we saw, not on every single person, but that was a theme that we saw with the Venus Pluto people, and not surprising, wanting to see beneath the hood. So she also was serving her community through her philanthropy and also through her legacy. So her lifelong partnership with her husband here, Trammell Crow, reflects this Venus-Pluto loyalty, this Venus-Pluto resilience, and transformative acts of love through service. So they have a museum. This is the museum, and they created beautiful legacy and transformation. So Margaret had a extreme passion for Asian related art. This is what her museum is all about. The Crow Museum. It's actually the Crow Museum. And it shows the beautiful, intricate, as you can see these images in the image, these beautiful, intricate made things that look like they have legacy. They look like they're old. Obviously, they're Asian inspired, but they look like they have old history to them. Even when you just look at the images and the art itself in the building. And not that Asian art is at all necessarily Venus Pluto, but the intricacy and the beauty and the history that is what represented here is what is the Venus Pluto part. Of course, the Asian art is gorgeous, it's beautiful, but what I'm trying to point out is that there's something intricate and deep and transformative about something she has here with her passion here for this beautiful Asian art. So, and she also, that she put it out in the public. Of course, the people we're looking at in the database too are public people. So we're not actually looking into the private lives of people. We're not doing that. That's a little different. But we're looking at public people, but she was not afraid to be in the public. Some people are just more shy. She was that person who was, hey, here's beauty. I want to share it with you, which I thought was pretty cool. And also there's the theme of cultural preservation as well with the Venus Pluto. That's the idea of what's important, what fuels the passion as well. So our conclusion with Margaret is that she reveals the life of sustaining power of a focused Venus-Pluto conjunction. Her survival through this early trauma and deep emotional loyalty and transformative of private passions into public legacy reflects the Venus-Pluto energy process. This energy process of resilience, devotion, and lasting impact. So she's definitely trying to be remembered after her passing through her beautiful collections of art. So through beauty and service and emotional strength, Margaret Crow embodied how strong relational energy can shape both personal healing and enduring contributions to the world. So that is Miss Margaret. So I don't know if we want to do another intermission here or we should wait. Michelle, do you have
There's,
thoughts on that?
yeah, whatever it is that's best for everyone else. There's a couple of questions in the chat that maybe
We could do
it's a
that.
good time to address those.
Yeah.
So this is excellent question, Christopher. Do you have to enter the Astro Database birth data manually into Sirius, or was there a way to import it into Sirius directly? So the same information is actually all in Sirius. Christopher, I don't know if you have Sirius or if you're just playing around with it or getting accustomed to it. But the same information and data is all there. It's just a matter of going into Sirius and learning how to select what it is that you want and to create the Astro signature.
Right, in this
Yeah.
case, you were just using Astro Databank, but you showed the charts in
Mm-hmm.
Sirius. So all you do is you just type. There are only 15 charts for conjunctions and 15 for trines, I guess. So you just started typing their name in the name field. The name appears, and you read it in. I think that's what you did.
That
So
too.
since there was only 15, say 30 total, you might have had to type in 30 names to show their chart wheels and look at them. You didn't actually
Yeah.
import them, you just typed them in, and they're already there, so you did not have to type in the date, time, and place. You just start
Right.
typing their last name, they appear, read it in, start typing the last name, read it in. So it might take 5 seconds to read in a name, because you only have to start typing the end of the beginning of the last name, right? So in a few minutes, you could read in all those charts into
Yeah.
Sirius.
Yep. Or if you wanted to
Yeah.
create an astro signature for your own research, that's gonna take only a
Yeah, if
couple
you
of
wanted to
seconds
use
to do.
Sirius instead of Astro Databank, then you would just do the whole thing in Sirius. You wouldn't need Astro.
Mhm.
Right.
But in
We
this case,
wanted
you
our,
used Astro Databank, then you wanted to just look at the charts. So you just started typing in their names. You didn't bother with an import because you can read them in so quickly because they're already there. And the
Yes.
names appear as you type them. Is that right?
yeah. Yep. That's
Does that
exactly
answer your
right.
question, Christopher? You get unmute.
Yeah, it does. I was wondering if they went to Astra Databank online through a web browser, or if they were using the version of Astra Databank which is resident in Sirius at this point.
Yeah, they were using
Right.
the online Astro Databank. Michele showed the screens in the online Astro Databank. So they use Astro Databank. They only use Sirius just to look at the chart wheels and think
Yeah.
about.
We wanted to give the, so not everybody has Sirius, so we wanted to give the option of doing it for free if you don't have Sirius, then you could just use the Astro Databank tool. Since we're so spoiled with Sirius, it was like, well, we'll just look at it in
Yeah.
Sirius just for
If-
that reason.
If they were
Yeah.
doing
Right.
the research on their own for their own interest, they would just use Sirius. They wouldn't use online
Right.
Astro
Mhm.
Databank. But for the Sirius is an expensive program, and they don't want everybody here to have to run out and spend their last dollar on software. So they showed how to do it in Astro Databank, but they would have just used Sirius since they have it and they can do
Yeah.
things they need to do with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is more efficient and serious because when it does put the listing up of them, it lists them by the strongest, the tightest orb. And then in that numerical order, Astro Databank lists them by date. So you have to go through and then pick out the strongest orbs. That's the only thing that's different. We couldn't figure out a way to list them otherwise, but you can do
Right.
it. It was a couple hundred people each one. Because that's why we limited it to the 30-minute orbs, I think, because we just wanted the ones that were strongest. We knew we'd have plenty with a small orb like that. But we just went through and said, okay, this is the top person with the strongest, and then this is the second. Yeah. But the tool on Astro Databank is really good. The one thing I will say about Sirius is that sometimes Astro Databank has a little updated information. Usually the people with AA data are not, you don't find that so much, but sometimes Astro Databank has a little bit more current information. So when you pull up something in the Sirius program, you pull up someone's name. At the bottom of that screen, you see a link to the Astro Databank. You can click that and it'll open up a page to Astro Databank, and you can just quickly see, is there a change or something like that?
Mhm.
And you can also do that. So that gives you the best data.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one hack that occurred to me that I could probably do if I were using Astro Databank online rather than the version that comes with Sirius, or if you're using another program, astrological program other than Sirius, Astro Databank Online for the aspects you're looking at, the minimum orb it allows you to use is just 1 degree. But suppose I wanted like something very, very tight, like a 5-minute orb. Well, using Sirius or probably any of the other major astrological programs, you could find time periods when the planets in question and the aspect in question were within that 5-minute
Mhm.
orb. And then you could go back to your list that you got from Astro Databank online, and you could just eliminate a lot of charts immediately by date if they don't fall within that time period where you got a 5-minute orb. So that's one hack I thought I could use to get around some of the limitations of Astro Databank Online with regard to those orbs.
That's really smart. That's a really
Mhm.
smart idea to do it that way. And then you're just being more efficient. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, was there more questions in the chat?
That was it.
Kai
Oh,
mentioned exporting to CSV format. I guess when you get that list, I haven't used the online Astro Data Bank in great detail, but when you get the list in online Astro Data Bank, there was no way to save that list.
I
I
don't,
mean, you should have been
was
able to
there,
like right click on the screen, worst case, and then save to file, and then maybe be able to import that into a spreadsheet. There might have been some trick to not have to like manually look through them all. I don't know. But it doesn't provide
yeah,
a nice feature to save the results in
that I
Astrodata.
can remember, it doesn't. Do you remember,
no,
Michelle? I didn't
no.
think it did, yeah, because that was the first time I've ever used Astro Data Bank for that purpose. I use Series have had it forever, so, yeah, that was, yeah, I don't think, there might be something a trick that I don't know, but yeah, that was how we handled it
Okay.
because we didn't see that.
Yeah, if it is there, it's well hidden.
Oh, okay, so thank you for looking.
Yeah, it's not really evident, and I haven't asked the people at Astro Data Bank about it yet, but it's not
Yeah,
something that's just immediately evident.
Yeah. Okay.
yeah. Well, for a free tool, it's really helpful and it is great, so, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so are you ready for the Venus trine Pluto? Michelle?
Indeed. Yeah, so we're going to dig in now to the Venus trine Pluto, and let's see if we see some of these same repetitive themes that Starlene just had in her Venus conjunct Pluto file. So our question here is like, what about the soft angle? As I mentioned earlier, this is something that was just random of the draw chosen and we came up with the idea of let's choose a soft aspect and a hard aspect. But I'm expecting to see here some kind of graceful power, this ease and this flow with this trine. I'm expecting to see resilience again and devotion, a sense of commitment and loyalty and a mission of sorts. But let's open the files and see what's revealed with these top three Venus trine Pluto people. So a recap of the energy, once again, Venus is our attraction to beauty. Pluto is that obsessive and compulsive energy that's transformative and deep. And the trine, as we know, it's this harmonious and smooth natural flow. So, Santino, I thought of you. I thought this was interesting when we had suspect number one pop up, Bill Dietrich, baseball player. I know you love baseball. So, Bill Dietrich was an American baseball pitcher in Major League Baseball. Here he is. And let me go to, he had an interesting story that mirrored a little bit of what we had seen earlier. But we can go over here to his chart and you will see his Venus trining Pluto with a 0-degree orb. Exact. We have 2455 Aquarius and 2455 of Gemini. So we're expecting a little curious thing here. So this is pretty not incredibly common. This obviously has to do with timing and divine timing. But let's move on and let's see and shine a light on his remarkable ascent and influence in the realm of Major League Baseball and what it is that this gentleman had to bring to our world here, Venus trine Pluto. So his nickname was Bullfrog. I thought that was really sweet. He was a major league pitcher from 1933 to 1948. And he's well known for having a very long baseball career with the Philadelphia Athletics and the Chicago White Sox. He was a notoriously fiery competitor, and he famously tossed a no-hitter on June 1st of 1937. I did not have time, but now I'm curious and I'll do this after. I want to see what was going on specifically on that date and create a bi-wheel and put that up with his chart. But anyway, um, he had a very slow start and he had several setbacks in his baseball career. He had extraordinary performance and like I said, he had a rough start. He actually, if I remember correctly, when I was doing the research, he actually wasn't a great ball
Pues
player.
yo estoy con un webinar. No,
He wasn't a great ball player in the beginning, and once he got into pitching, then that created something else for him. It was kind of like he found his sweet spot. Um, but he responded with extraordinary performance shortly thereafter. And just 2 days after a blowout loss, he pitched a no-hitter against the St. Louis Browns. Here we are on that specific date. And he rebounded from this. And that rebound, that Venus Pluto trine, this theme of rebounding back, it exemplifies that resilience, that plutonic resilience and transformative energy. And out of this was actually in quotes by him at one point in time, out of a humiliating defeat came the game of his life. So it's like one day, bottom of the barrel, and the next day, like here we are. Like he transformed. I think they take that force and that drive, that plutonic drive, and literally make lemonade out of the lemons. That's what I kept thinking when I was doing this research. So even while enduring physical challenges, he stood his ground. I think that's very plutonic as well. In 1941, after taking a fastball from Bob Feller that left him momentarily stunned, Dietrich quickly returned to the mound and triumphed over Feller with a score of 4-3. And his own remark was the closest call I ever had, highlighting how narrowly he escaped serious injury. Remarkably, he bounced back right away to secure the victory. And this unwavering determination and the ability to withstand pressure exemplify his resilient passion. This Venus Pluto, my drive and my passion for what it is that I love so dearly, love and value. Dietrich's life shows some examples of his steadfastness, even if not dramatic. After retiring from baseball, he settled into his post-playing career with his wife, Doris, his former high school sweetheart, and their 2 children. Remaining with the hometown sweetheart for life suggests a constancy and love and family. So we're seeing a theme here again with Venus Pluto in connection to close ties, people it is that we love, kind of wanting this thing that lasts past death. It's a very classic Venus-Pluto bond of a long-term commitment, that commitment in his marriage and his relationship and to his family. And the couple were married for decades until his death in 1978. So I would expect that a little bit with the Venus-Pluto. But yeah, we saw once again with Bill Dietrich this undeniable devotion, not just to his family, but to his career, to what it was that he loved, this resilience of bouncing back after trauma or turmoil, and his beautiful sense of commitment and loyalty and mission. The Venus-Pluto trine to me feels very missional. The hard aspect does too, but there's almost, there's an ease that comes with this.
Mhm.
Suspect number 2. This gentleman was quite interesting. This is Rolando Hinojosa, and he was an American novelist, essayist, and a poet known for his literary contributions. And his contributions were cultural as well, and we'll dig into that. And here he is. We can see once again Venus trining Pluto in Pisces and Cancer, and here again a 0-degree orb, exact. So let's take a peek at his impact on the world. And it lies in his powerful and innovative literary chronicling of the Mexican-American experience. This was fascinating to read in his biographies. He had a very significant influence on the Latino and Latina literature, his contributions to academia, and a lasting legacy as a vital voice in American letters. So this theme of a lasting legacy shows up once again. I know that we are, choosing out of a data bank famous people, but still. So he had this very intense emotional depth and an unwavering loyalty in relationships. Here we're seeing the repeated theme once again, and a knack from transforming pain into art. In his case, these energies appear in his personal story. He grew up bilingual in a very proud borderland family. He had an Anglo mother and a Hispanic father. And this gave him an innate empathy for diverse perspectives and cultural roots. As a youngster, he enlisted in the US Army at the age of 17, and he actually wrote a novel later on, and this was called Korean Love Stories, that was written in 1978, and it's based on his harrowing war experience. So here again, there's like pain that brings beauty. Theme there. He turned that trauma, turned those experiences into poetry. And that implies a very deep and internal process of this suffering that he experienced in life. His life story shows an emotional intensity from the pain of loss. His second wife died in 1999. That was a big piece of this as well. To the joy he found in community and a willingness to delve into these extremes, reflecting the Plutonian theme of rebirth through crisis. So here we see it once again, rebirth through crisis. Crisis comes in many extremes, as we know, and we all handle things differently. We are our own unique energetic expression. I feel in this world, I always say, and even to clients, like our charts are perfect as they are. They're literally, a piece of us. But this ability to transform pain into beauty, I think, is really profound and it's poetic in itself. Now, his novels and poems vividly express those inner patterns, and he worked consistently. And this portrayed always in his writing the intense emotional currents of community life, which reflected those same Venus Pluto themes. So he actually wrote here too about when I was reading some of his work about, poverty and people losing their children and just all kinds of very deep, profound life experiences. And several critics noted how he turned the Rio Grande Valley into the mythic setting for exploring family history and identity. So if we think about transformative, Plutonic, transforming pain into beauty, that always brings us into like the next step or the next place in life. It does transform us. So love, loyalty, betrayal, and loss these are driving forces in his stories. And his characters, close personal ties and sacrifices really mirror that Venusian loyalty. So this repetitive theme of loyalty that shows once again, while the harsh social realities that they face, as I said, he speaks quite a bit about poverty and racial injustices and even his experiences in war. So that's transformative. Central themes in his work are family ties, romantic relationships, tested by hardship. And this brings an appreciation for the deep bonds that he had in life and in his own experiences. And I find it really beautiful that, in writing, not only did he transform, but he transformed and then sent his message literally out into the world, right? So there's a sharing that comes with that as well. So he talks a lot about marriages, relationship, parent-child relationships, and loyalty and these deep bonds. Really beautiful. In summary, Hinojosa's life and writing vividly illustrate the Venus trine Pluto aspect. He was passionately devoted to his culture, to the cultural world, and to the relationships, while he underwent profound transformation through personal and historical traumas, I have said several times. And this expressed that fusion by turning suffering into rich, meaningful art, or taking those lemons and turning them into lemonade. I'm really curious to see and maybe, further delve into this research of not necessarily cherry picking data, but going through some people that I do know or that we do know, or more out of the data bank. Maybe looking at the sextile or other aspects to see if these themes, same themes show up again. And even we may think about people that you know personally. Do you know someone who has this beautiful and innate ability to take hardship and gracefully turn it into something quite beautiful? I know when I think about these things, I'm like, oh, that reminds me, Starlene, I know you do this too. This reminds me of so and so. And you go through and you look at their chart and you're like, yep, there it is. Okay, it works. But his heartfelt portrayal of love, loyalty, and resilience in the face of hardships, this was really beautiful. And it stands as a testament to just how these planetary energies manifest in human form. And it, kind of confirms some of our thoughts or our ideas as we continue to research.
And I actually do have Venus trine Pluto by 1 degree, though. It's 1 whole degree. Exactly. So
Still a
I can see
degree.
that in myself, the transformation, and yeah.
And I have the sextile, so yes,
And you have the
absolutely.
sextile, right? So that was
Mhm.
another interesting. Yep.
Yeah. So he has this lasting legacy as well, Platonic, that deep love, deep passion, and his work remains a classic of American literature. So that's going to live on for generations to come in writing. So here, once again, we saw his devotion, that Venus Pluto, the graceful resilience and the trine, and the Venus Pluto, and a sense of commitment, loyalty, and mission. Check, check, check. He checked all the boxes. So our third suspect here is Lucien Monod, and he was a scientist. So this was fascinating. He was a French biologist who received the Nobel Prize in Physiology or Medicine in 1965. So he's a little more modern day era. And he was a fascinating read. We can see here also Venus trining Pluto, exact 0 degree orb. Once again, we have the Aquarius Gemini. He was a highly influential French biochemist and molecular biologist whose work profoundly impacted the world's understanding of fundamental biological processes. So it was fascinating to read about him. And we'll take a look at his significant impact that he had on science in the world. His inner life was marked by intense emotional depth. He had this highly artistic sensitivity. He was a musician of sorts, and that steadfast commitment to ideals. It always boggles my mind. Like, I love that the music and the science always tend to come together. It's like there's something so poetic and beautiful in the brain there. I just see it so often. And he grew up surrounded by this art and music, and he actually hesitated between the two and had to carefully divide his time between research and playing music, research and playing chamber music. So must have been his balance in life here. But these pursuits suggest an aesthetic soul that's drawn to beauty and intensity, qualities often attributed to the Venus-Pluto harmony. Chamber music, that's interesting as well. So there's an intensity and obviously like a beauty that shines through in that style of music. Um, so he wrote some personal notes and had later writings that reveal a man who felt the weight of existence deeply. This was so profound when I read this, and this was in a book that he wrote called Chance and Necessity. And to quote him exactly, he said, "Man knows he is alone in the universe's unfeeling immensity, out of which he emerged only by chance. The kingdom above or the darkness below, it is for him to choose." Interesting, right? The kingdom above, like the heavens above, are we going to see the light or are you going to see the darkness? Are you going to take your lemons? Are you going to make lemonade? What are you going to do with this? Very Venus Pluto. This bleak yet lucid perspective shows both his emotional gravity, there's depth in that, and resilience. Despite confronting meaninglessness, he embraced a kind of heroic choice. So this was an interesting little thing too. He even invoked Camus's line. I don't know if anyone has ever read Sisyphus, but one must imagine Sisyphus happy in his work. Such stoic perseverance under crisis. He survived polio as a child, and he actually survived the terror of World War II. And this once again exemplifies that emotional resilience, that Venus-Pluto trine. So during World War II, he risked his life daily. This was fascinating. One comrade was executed while Monod narrowly escaped arrest. And in wartime, he literally led a double life. So his words were biology by day, there's his driving force and what he finds beauty, and resistance work by night, which revealed his intense loyalty to France and justice. His later choices confirmed that loyalty was to humanist values rather than ideology, and he joined the Communist Party only pragmatically during the resistance, yet had serious reservations about the communists. So it was really an interesting story to read, but also about his loyalty to his culture and to France and to justice, and confirming all of that as well. So his scientific work, it bore the stamp of those traits. He pursued molecular genetics with creative vigor, and he uncovered elegant principles of life's regulation. So he did a lot of work on biology and won a Nobel Prize there in his research, and that showcased that beautifully. And his feats were seen as an obsessive loyalty to rational order and almost aesthetic pleasure and revealing nature's hidden patterns. That was fascinating. And he later described science as an ethics of knowledge, a value-free commitment to truth. So committed once again to ideals, values, and truth. In later decades, he continued engaging society. He signed the Humanist Manifesto in 1973, and he lectured widely on science and society. So his book itself was popularized in French and English to reach global readers, once again, withstanding the element of time for generations to come. So we see this, this ease, this flow. He always championed rational values with passion, and the highest values of culture. Culture shows up once again. I find it fascinating and it makes so much sense, right? Like we think of the moon in terms of history and culture, but that's Venusian as well. There's sensitivity, there's feeling that comes with Venus. It's what moves us. So peace, art, and knowledge of the highest value. So that was Jack. In summary, his life and career exemplified this trine profile. He fused aesthetic sensitivity for music. We talked about his music, his art, his clear writing, with a transformative drive for science and revolution, heroicism, and staying emotionally true to his ideals while reshaping society and thought. So his commitment to the advancement of science as a whole was fueled by a passion for its potential. So here's this passionate drive that we see that Pluto brings once again. It's really quite beautiful. So, yep, checking all the boxes, devotion, a graceful resilience, a sense of commitment, loyalty, and mission. This is very missional once again. And there we have it. Those were the top 3. So as we do the research, don't stop at 3. We just couldn't do 15 or you would all be here for the rest of the day. So, and take your time with this, dig through. So Starlene and I just, as I said, we highlighted the top 3 of our aspects, but now let's compare the evidence a little bit to see how these things line up and if it's in alignment with our hypothesis.
Yeah. So we can start comparing the evidence here, and we're looking at the 2. Are they the same as what we were thinking? Are they different? What are the shared motifs that they have? So looking at them both. Also, something to think about too is, where did they surprise us? Where is something that popped up that we weren't expecting? So in vibrational astrology, in the model of vibrational astrology, the idea of the energy process being the motivating drive, and then the symptoms that come from that, which one of them is archetypal symptoms or archetypes, or behavior patterns that come from the energy process, which is the drive, and that shows up in different ways, but the drive is the same. So that's the beauty of vibrational astrology, that model, because you can always see the drive. It just, the symptoms of that drive show up differently. So we're wondering in the question is, what's different about the conjunction versus the trine? So let's see, let's do a little synthesis here and maybe rethink what we already thought we knew, or maybe not. Maybe we're completely spot on. Let's look at that. So when we go back to the Venus conjunct Pluto, it provides an individual with, this is what we have, I'll just read it to everyone, that these individuals have a power to endure emotional loss, betrayal, or change and emerge stronger. They are emotionally pulled towards what's hidden, mysterious, or even forgotten. There is beauty within layers, and the truth comes with some scars, but that's what happens with the Venus conjunct Pluto people. So Venus conjunct Pluto creates a very powerful, concentrated emotional force. As you mentioned, Michele, you said the emotional part of Venus, that connection to sensitivity, and that instigates or pushes forward a deeper transformation in the person and in relationships. And out from this, the energy demands to be expressed. It demands to come through. We were expecting this, and we did see this in the behavior patterns of the people that we were looking at. Oftentimes, this comes through with the Venus conjunct Pluto people in an intense bonding, for good or bad. The intense bonding is there. Emotional crises can happen, and that bonding happens from that, or profound loyalty. We saw that multiple times as we're digging through the people, that there's loyalty coming from the people that have the Venus Pluto conjunction. So our beautiful Phoenix here, do we see a theme and a pattern with the Venus conjunct Pluto? Do we see a concentrated emotional force? I think we do. And the examples that we showed, and even the people that we further went through, the keywords that we thought about Venus Pluto was concentrated emotional force. And that's what these people displayed in their charts over and over consistently. So Michele.
So in contrast, so the Venus trine Pluto, it showed this reflecting, a flowing, stable connection to emotional depth. We saw the emotional depth through even just these 3 people. The transformation still occurs, but through natural growth and resilience rather than emotional urgency. The trine allows the Venus Pluto energy to express with less friction and greater ease. So there is a little bit of an ease, like we showed, like bounce them right back. Bill Dietrich, #1 over there. So Venus trine Pluto, do we see a theme and a pattern? Yes, we saw this strength that was wrapped in grace. It was graceful. People handled themselves gracefully. The takeaway. So extreme case sampling, it's a portal, and it goes from symbol to experience, from theory to insight. And what it was that we presented, I think it's important to say, like, this wasn't just about Venus and Pluto today, but more in terms of walking everyone through the steps and showing what emerges when you begin research like this. These are the things that will keep you up at night. It comes with a little bit of a disclaimer, right, Starlene?
Yeah, definitely.
Might have dreams or nightmares about Venus and Pluto at 3 a.m.
Yeah,
Anyway.
but that exactly.
Cool.
But then it takes you from the thought of it, what is going on, to when you do the digging and you start to see, is this what I'm expecting, or is it something else? And it takes the guesswork into something that's more grounded, more exactly, this is it. This is it. And that's the fun part of it, even if it is 3 a.m. in the morning. But it's the
Yes.
idea of something is compelling me to understand that when I do research, I kind of immerse myself in it. Maybe that's my Venus trine Pluto, but I immerse myself into the idea of this is what I'm doing. And, you know, then it just takes over the psyche in some way. And things do strike you at the strangest times, where you think about,
Sure
oh,
do.
okay, this makes sense. Yeah. And so you never know, you might get up and end up researching something. Yeah. And it's
Yeah.
actually fun.
It is fun.
So it's your turn to be astro detectives, and let's have a conversation about it. So I'm curious, if you want to, please say it in the chat, let us know. But what would you want to investigate? Is there something that's going through your mind that you would like to investigate? Or what would you like to think of as an extreme case? It's pretty simple if we look at the most amazing baseball players or best baseball players. That's obvious, right? But what would be an extreme case to you? These are questions to think about when you're doing research. You know, what could it be? Because it doesn't have to necessarily be something that you would be very obvious about. Or what data would you like to look at when you start to dig into people? Those are all very important questions to ask yourself before you start doing the research. So in conclusion, extreme case sampling offers a few different things to think about, to keep in your mind. One is a practical research methodology in astrology. So I think from what we did here, I think it's pretty clear that this is a system that we can work with, and there's specific rules to work within it, and come up with ideas of something that is meaningful and that we have confidence in. And that's the thing about research, is do we have good confidence in something or not? And if we have good confidence in something, that means that we feel like it will be consistent, you know, and that's what we're looking for, is confidence. Extreme case sampling does offer that. If you keep looking, you can usually find something you can understand and have confidence in. It also gives you an invitation to not just test things, or an invitation to test things, not just assume. So you're able to actually say, well, I think Venus and Pluto conjunct mean this. Well, let's go look. We dig it up, dig all the information up like we showed you to, who was the strongest, not cherry picking, and then start digging through their biographical information and understanding, and does it work? That's a test. That's what we do when we're researching something. And then it also is bridging something between a symbolic idea, which is, some people look at astrology as symbolic. I look at it more of an energy process, but that idea of astrology and empirical inquiry. So we can bridge the two. This is what we're doing with actual research, modern research methods. We're bridging the idea of a theory, of a tradition, something of that sort, and then we're looking at it empirically through the lens of the research and the research methods. And last, it also brings a new depth and dimension to astrological thinking. So this is something you don't get when you're just reading a book that's traditional. I love traditional astrology. I think it's beautiful. I have no idea how those traditional astrologers came up with their information. Maybe it's written down somewhere, it's lost to time. I don't know. But I think using the astrology or using the research methods that you're able to in the time period in which you live, why wouldn't you? You know, all sciences do that. And I think that astrology is just one of them. And I think the idea of looking at things from that perspective gives us new depth. It gives us this dimension we don't necessarily get from just tradition, you know. So just to reflect and discuss a little bit, we can think about this, and feel free to write something in the chat room as well. So how would you define an extreme case in something that you would like to do? How would you define it? Having a good, solid definition, question, way you're going to get the question, meaning what data are you going to take it from? Those are all important steps to have before you start doing the research, because you want to have that well defined. So you know this is what we're going to do and this is how we're going to do it. You don't want to change midstream and say, oh, I collected all this data from one place, and then midstream you just want to go to another place and collect data. You want to have it laid out, the idea, the framework of what you're going to do laid out first. You also could think about it from the extreme cases, the extreme people, behaviors, or you could look at what planetary combinations, like we did in these Venus Pluto people. And then we also can think about the different methods, and extreme case sampling is just one method, but this is one that's used that's pretty consistent and definitely gives us confidence in what we're understanding when we keep looking at it. And you figure out the method you're going to use, and that will help you have your research practice.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Santino, you have some questions or thoughts?
Yeah, I
I
had
see
some.
here in the chat.
Yeah, I have some thoughts. One is one of the things I notice in the top people is that you know, some people will say for Venus Pluto, like I have a very tight Venus square Pluto in my chart, like 15 minutes or something. And people have said to me, oh, you know, jealousy and things like this must be a big theme in your life, etc. Like it's all like a Shakespearean Othello thing.
Mhm.
And there isn't much mention among these people about that. It's like devotion to their, it's almost like it's not, there's not even that much, I'm not hearing a lot that's specifically conspicuously Venusian, like they're not, like one guy does play music, etc., but it's, you know, a lot of it is like political or scientific or whatever, or social. So the Venus doesn't seem as obvious. The Pluto seems more obvious.
Mhm.
And um, it's more like dedication and also the depth of it, almost like a Saturnian quality, you know, like an existential quality, almost like an
Yes.
Pluto is like an ultimate, like what are we all here for kind of thing. And so what's interesting to me is what's not showing up. Um, a lot of
Yeah.
things that are said about Venus, Pluto that I'm not really seeing at all. So I'm actually seeing this as, in my mind, it's contradicting a lot of our understanding of Venus, Pluto. I mean, it
Yeah.
almost sounds like too Aquarian, too like too involved in the world and not personal. And also, like you mentioned, dedication, like the guy married his his high school sweetheart and all that stuff. It's like sometimes we think of Venus, Pluto as just the opposite. Like they're, you know,
Like
they're over the
explosive.
top.
Yeah.
Well, they're so fanatical that nothing works. You know, you don't think of Pluto as being a nice guy out there, right? Like
Right.
Saturn's the big bad guy, Pluto's next in line. I mean, he's like when people have a Pluto transit, they don't say, "Oh wow, Pluto's transiting my Venus. Ooh, this is going to be fun." I never heard anybody say that. So, like these guys are having way too much fun for Pluto. Like, all this constructive stuff, and they transform Poland and they transform biology, and wow, it's like they're like these magicians making everything beautiful. I don't hear Pluto described. I'm exaggerating, but I'm just trying to, like, for didactic purposes, emphasize that um, it all seems a little too sweet for how we normally think of Venus. Is not, that's right. Anyway, it's something like existential depth to Pluto. Maybe Pluto is more existentially deep and profound and serious and determined than we usually think, is what I'm getting from the research, instead of like setting you off to be like a wacko or something, you know.
I agree with that. And what would be an interesting follow-up to this is looking at Venus Mars, because I think my thought is, and I haven't done the research, is that maybe Venus Mars would be a little bit more intense or challenging than I'm sorry, I said Venus Mars, I meant Mars Pluto. So maybe doing Mars Pluto might be a little bit more intense than Venus Pluto. That's an
Venus
idea.
Pluto.
Venus softens Pluto a little bit, and I think that's true, because the depth is what we were seeing in these people, is like they immerse themselves. Pluto immerses it does that connection where it's deep and it immerses itself. And that was the theme that we kept getting. I know what you're saying about the square Venus, Pluto squared, like in traditional astrology, might be about jealousy and such. That wasn't what we were seeing. We were just seeing that intense, like, love. The one that was actually doing the family genealogy is like this love for what is important to that person.
Yeah, it just seems like a little, makes Venus kind of abstract. Like genealogy isn't, well, he did make the beautiful tree, and that was
Yeah.
Venusian. So the tree,
And
when
that
I
was
saw
just
the
one of
tree, I
many.
went, oh, hallelujah, Venus, like, but like biology, Poland, whatever, it's like, it's not as obviously, like sometimes when people do astrology, they'll just say Venus, romance, art, whatever.
I think
There
it's a
seems to be
love,
something
though.
deep and
Yeah.
It's the love
profound.
or the desire of where their
Yeah,
energy,
but it's
like
kind of
what
almost
they're,
like an impersonal love, or like a transpersonal love or something, like dedicated to these bigger things. At least among those people, I'm not
hmm
seeing, like, I
Right.
didn't see like, oh, this guy fell in love when the girl was 15 and she got pregnant, and then she decided to kill him, and I mean, like, all this Othello like drama
yeah, no.
stuff.
Yeah. No, we didn't see that. Which, if I was looking at traditionally, I might think that. Obviously my brain is not in the traditional sense of, I understand it, but it's not where my focus is in my work. So the idea of it could be there, but it wasn't really what we were seeing. We were seeing that immersion. And it did seem to flow better with it seemed like there was less intensity there with the trine. So, and obviously there's more than just the Venus Pluto aspect in these people's charts, but yeah, I wasn't seeing the traditional intense jealousy stuff going on that I would have expected to see if I was a traditional
And
astrologer.
just obvious extremism or fanaticism.
hmm
Yeah.
I mean, they're devoted, they're dedicated,
Devoted.
but it's
And the
more like
transformational.
devotion rather than um, like a personal obsession that drives you over the edge. They're not alcoholics, drug addicts, into pornography or like other, like, things like that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, good or bad. I mean, that's just my observation. Um, Yeah, so maybe the Mars Pluto, Janice mentions just in the chat now, Saturn Pluto, maybe that would be more severe. Maybe the square would be more severe. I don't know, just my thought about it. I mean, one of the things about qualitative research is it's a first step beyond, I mean, it removes selection bias. So we know that we're not just cherry picking what we want, the people we want to see. But beyond that, just trying to sort out what is it we're seeing is often requires a lot of discussion among different people to notice different things. It's still very subjective. The objective part is we didn't pick the people. but subjectively, what's really consistent here? What are we noticing?
Right.
Yeah.
Are there other questions in the chat that we have?
Let's see here. So Janice, Blake has a comment here. 3 outer planets in a less than 1 degree cluster and a harmonic seems pretty extreme. So that hopefully it has another higher compound harmonic that pulls in more where it can, within 12 degrees, where it can, 12 degrees with 5 planets. So Blake, is your question like, how would we read these in higher harmonic charts?
It's just about thinking about what would count as extreme.
I
Just
would
like an
say
example. I mean, there's
anything,
different ways of doing it, but hopefully we would want to filter out people from the database so that every single chart didn't have something extreme in it. But it would be something extreme enough that most people wouldn't have it.
yeah, when we plug the information in, it's going to filter out anything more than what it is that we're asking for. So in this case, when we put in 1 degree or less, it's going to filter out anything that doesn't have that. And then we can kind of break everything down from there. But we're looking at tiny, tiny orbs. I think if we're looking at anything less than a degree, that's really significant. Obviously, 30 minutes is
Yeah,
super
like
significant.
what you were doing would probably filter out 99.9% of the people.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we're looking at a database of 80,000, 100,000 charts, and it narrowed it down to 395, you know?
Yeah, I think one thing is that Blake is getting at, which I think is really important, is we research what we believe in, what we're excited about. Like sometimes when I would tell people, oh, I do research, they say, oh, you're trying to prove astrology. Like why the heck would I do that? I mean, I do it because I want to learn. So I'm trying to figure something out. Um, and if you're like you guys, I think what you did in this presentation is not to emphasize too much your personal style, like you would be using the serious software, but your people don't have that. So you're appealing to what a lot of people can relate to. And a lot of people would relate to a single aspect, like a Venus
Right.
Pluto's trine. That's what a lot of people look at. They, going to look at those aspects and then what it's ruling and, what's disposing it, etc. But as a vibrational astrologer, what Blake is describing is what we actually do. We tend to analyze 3-planet or 4-planet patterns, things that are so overpoweringly conspicuous that they should show up. And also when we do 2 planets in vibrational astrology, we look to see what vibrational systems they're embedded in to understand them. So we don't tend to just interpret, oh, they have Venus trine Pluto. Like, what if that's part of a 33 vibe thing with 3 other planets very exact or something? The whole meaning changes. But I think what you were doing here is to relate it outside of the narrow scope of vibrational astrology to what people more commonly do, which is to look at the 2 planets. But as vibrational astrologers, I'm inclined to do what Blake is saying, which is if I looked at an aspect, I wouldn't draw conclusions based on just the aspect. I would draw conclusions based on what it's doing in that chart.
Yeah, that's definitely true, Santino. We would, if we were looking at more than one planet, we actually did look through the Astro Databank to try to see if there was a way to look at 3 planets. And and I think we briefly looked at that, and then it wasn't easy for us to figure out how to pull up someone with like Venus, Mars, Pluto
Right,
conjunct or something.
and
So
I
we were
suppose-
like, well, let's keep it simple.
I
Yeah.
suppose
just
I'm
one more
thinking a bit
thing.
more general, if what is extreme, like, because if you take one specific thing, that would be easy to filter out most of the people. But if you had a more general thought on what extreme was, Like
Well,
if you didn't know which planets weren't involved, that would be the more general kind of thought. Then what makes it extreme?
well, here's the thing. If you the guys with the Venus trine Pluto with no orb, they are the most extreme Venus Pluto people. So they are extreme. They are the most extreme. But in analyzing it as a vibrational astrologer, I would you have the freedom in extreme case sampling to analyze the entire chart. It's not like when you do a statistical analysis and you just look at the data. In other words, you look at the whole chart and you make any argument you want based on the whole chart. So you could say, oh, well, Venus is disposed by this, therefore it's not as intense or whatever. But you have the freedom to use whatever argument you want to make. And as a vibrational astrologer, I would be looking at what the Venus Pluto is embedded in, right?
Yeah,
If that
like if
Venus
it,
Pluto is in a 39 vibe with, Saturn and let's say it's in a 33 vibe with Saturn and Uranus, that's completely different than
By
if
yes,
by
it's
the
with
time
Mercury
Right.
and Jupiter.
the orb is 0 degrees, like it was on those trines, it's almost inevitable it's going to be involved in more patterns.
Exactly.
yes,
It's inevitable. And what are those patterns? And they're going to change everything.
yep,
But I know, I'm figuring you didn't want to go there because that gets into a lot of specific theory and you're trying to teach principles of research. But, one of the good things about extreme case sampling is you have the freedom to do anything you want. You just have to make a consistent rule. You can
right.
look at anything in the chart. You can say, well, it's in the fifth house, therefore this. But now you have to apply that to every single chart you're looking at.
And what we were thinking with this demonstration is that we were building upon theory. So like I mentioned early on, understanding what Venus means, understanding what Pluto means, understanding what the conjunction and the trine mean independently, and then looking at, Venus trine Pluto, Venus conjunct Pluto. The next level to something like this could be looking at, a 3 planets, or looking at what, like you said, Santino, what vibration do they show up in with another planet or two? And that would be like a next level. But we were thinking, Michele and I were thinking, like, starting at the building blocks, like
Yes.
the pieces of the raw material we put together. So if we don't really understand the raw material, it's hard to extrapolate what does it mean with the other things, so we're trying to get really into that space of like starting from the beginning. And yeah, it's a basic fundamental type of research project, displaying the idea of how to do it, but also what we would do and how we could potentially build upon it in the
Right.
future. And I do think we could build upon it. That would be a great way to
And I
look
think
at what's next.
I think you can build on it without doing another study, is the main point I want to make. Because you don't have to restrict yourself to only what you can study the whole chart.
Mm-hmm.
And that's one of the reasons why extreme case sampling is good for astrologers, is because a lot of astrologers don't want to split the chart into pieces and then do it. They say, you're destroying the life of it. You're not taking the whole chart into account. One of the beautiful things about extreme case sampling is you can do the whole chart. Anything you want to do. If you want to look at, what sign Venus is in or what disposes it or whatever. That's part of you're making an argument that these extreme people fit the chart based on whatever you want to come up with. The thing that controls you from just making stuff up is that you have to apply that rule to every chart. So if you say Venus is disposed by Saturn or whatever, therefore this, now you have to do what's the dispositor of Venus in all top 15 charts. You have to apply the same rules, but you can make up rules as you want to fit what you're seeing.
Yeah.
Christopher has a question and a point here, and it says a limitation might be that biographies often focus on events in a person's life instead of inner feelings. Thus, perhaps Venus Pluto is related to jealousy, but it might not show up in a bio unless they commit some action based on that jealousy.
Yeah. That's definitely
So,
possible in any of, yeah.
mhm,
That's exactly true, and that's why in some of the research we've done, we've only done the people with extensive biographies.
mhm,
But I
Yeah,
found
and
that to be a
auto,
huge, that is definitely a huge problem. Because when we
yeah,
have the extensive biographies, you start seeing all kinds of things that are not
We
Yeah,
end up with a lot of
public
things we
eye.
can't do using databases.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's amazing to me the information or the conclusions that you are able to extract just by working probably primarily with events in a person's life. But at the same time, I'm always yearning for that more in-depth information about how did this make a person feel? How did it
yeah,
affect them
no, that's true. And
emotionally?
you don't, yeah,
I've had many
you don't
cases,
always get that.
I've had many cases where I did extreme case sampling, and I only used people born after, say, 2000 was a common thing. Sometimes only after 2020. And if they had a YouTube interview or something, after I saw the interview, it was like, oh my God, everything I thought is 100% true.
mhm,
But until the interview, there was no evidence of it.
Mm,
It just was like stunning. I mean, I can give examples that, or just reading about the person in detail, um, about their personal life, and things show up that, like you said, if you're reading something, typically just telling you about the main events in their lives and what they're known for.
People who talk a lot on video would make good case studies as opposed to people that just are a name in the database.
Yeah,
yeah,
the actual seeing the person often revealed
And then you
things that I
can
just couldn't get anywhere else.
feel the energy or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Like
mhm.
they talk really fast, or they're stuttering, or they're talking about their children or whatever, or you realize they're really political radicals or pacifists or all kinds of things, that just don't show up.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
and the quotes and reading, even reading interviews, I think seeing, of course, is better, having them talk a talking interview as opposed to reading an interview, but that does work as well. Or autobiographies, the person's more apt to sharing something of their own intimate self in that. But those are all different ways to look. Also, I remember your eating disorder research when you had the two actresses. I forget who it was. It was one played Princess Diana in a movie, right? Something
Mhm.
like that. Yeah,
Yep.
but it was so interesting because Princess Diana was also part of that. So they shared the same astrological traits, and the woman also played her as an actress, Princess Diana, in a movie.
Didn't-
So I don't remember who that
Yeah.
person was, but I
Yeah.
remember that, and I was just like,
Catherine
that's
Oxenberg. And it's like, yeah, she stepped right into that role. And another thing too, beyond when you're feeling or you're picking up on people's energy, like in an interview and you're hearing them speak, or you see the way that their outward appearance is, it's so critically and vitally apparent. So often I have found if they're artists of sorts, so the music, the words that they're using in their lyrics, the type of music, if they write poetry, it like shines right on through. It's because that's their energy is literally pouring out into expression on paper or through words. So it's really easy to see those themes come out there as well. But yeah, definitely conversation and interview for sure.
yeah,
Well, should we
definitely
take a
conversation
few
and
minutes
interviews. It
break and then
helps
see
to
if
see
anybody has
the
additional things we want to get into after the break?
sure.
Sure.
So how long do you want to break? You want to do a full,
Mm,
like, 5 minutes or so?
Sure, that sounds good.
Okay, so I've
So,
got 18 after the hour. So let's meet at 23 after the hour and see. if you guys have any questions, topics, anything, even if it's only tangentially related to this, let us know. So we'll meet again in 5 minutes. Okay, it's actually 25 after the hour. It's been more than 5 minutes. So there's Michelle. I wanted to mention, let me I wanted to mention like some takeaways that I have from the research, what I was saying before, but like more concisely, and see if this makes sense to Michelle, Starlene, and everybody who's still here and interested in this, is takeaways that I have from the research is that Venus and Pluto, I have more confidence than before I heard the results of the research that Venus and Pluto are capable of devotion, dedication, perseverance, resilience, and you might say effective application of the energy than I often feel like they're capable of.
Mhm.
In that, that's of the six people, I'm not seeing them as extreme. You know, they're not like all about drugs, sex, and rock and roll, or they're not alcoholics. They're not um, committed suicide because their girlfriend left them or something. Um, I'm sure those things are possible, but it's the capacity of Venus Pluto to be committed, devoted, even focused. I mean, the guy who married his child, high school sweetheart,
Which
for example, it's like that kind of thing seems to be very much within the scope of Venus Pluto,
which one is
even
the
more than I
loyal
thought. Does
planet?
that make sense?
Yeah,
Well,
that does make they do have a quality. You've discovered they have a quality all on their own, sort of.
Yeah, the depth of these people, like the one guy was saying, I forget, I can't, we'd have to go back to the slide, but something about like, what is life all about? Um, like, what am I here for?
Mm.
I'm just floating in, we
You
can
do
choose
get
heaven or hell. We're just
three
floating
planet
through.
structures a lot of the time, like all the time when you have an aspect, then the third transiting planet can come along and set it off all the time. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Once something aspects one Venus is aspecting Pluto as well at almost exact moment. But that just struck me like that because that's a tendency I have, and I have a strong Venus Pluto, is that
yep.
I always feel like I'm just spinning around. I'm on this like little planet in outer space, and what am I choosing to do with it? And I'm hearing this guy say it. It's like, oh my God, like this is almost the same exact language.
Which is
Um,
the loyal planet of the two, though? Is it Pluto that's the loyal one, or Venus that's the loyal one? Or did it
I
take
think
maybe the
both of them
loyal,
to make it?
I think it's that Pluto seems to have this depth of perspective that it doesn't want to play around. It doesn't want to goof around. It doesn't want to, you know, it doesn't want to just, it's not fun and games. Like what,
and
um,
couldn't we think of Pluto as the immersion in some way? It's not the perfect energy process of compulsion, but when we think about compulsive, obsessive things, there's an immersion in that. So if you're obsessively compulsing over another human, you are immersing whether the person is appreciating it or not, but you're immersing in them. So there is a
yeah,
loyalty that comes. I think Venus makes it the loyal, gives it that loyal. That's where I was going at with in the idea of thinking about loyalty with the two. So maybe it's that they're not individually loyal, but together in the
yeah.
right
I,
circumstances, loyalty can be, or
I
crazy
think,
obsessive stuff could be it too.
I think the loyalty is sometimes just a symptom of sorting things out and deciding what's important. So you stick with it. Two interesting things about Pluto is number one, it's a Kuiper belt object. you know, it's it's out with all those other tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of things. It also, well, three interesting. Another thing is there's these thousands of Plutinos, other objects that are synchronized to the orbit. orbit of Pluto. Pluto's like the
Like
leader of the
Orcus.
pack. And the third thing is it's in harmonic resonance with Neptune. The only two planets that are in harmonic resonance are Neptune and Pluto.
Aren't all the Plutinos doing that same resonance?
Yeah, and the Plutinos
Yeah,
are
they're
doing the same
following it.
resonance with Neptune. Yes. Yeah. So
Like a
all these
cloud,
little
right?
pieces of rock, plus the big leader, Pluto, are all in
Less a cloud,
harmonic.
but there's a few.
What's that, Blake?
There's less than a cloud, but there's a few.
Yeah, like a group of them
Yeah,
together.
I
Yeah.
mean, we can Google it. I think they're up to many hundreds now, Plutinos.
Oh,
Um, it used to be
that's a
dozens,
lot.
but yeah. And but that harmonic resonance with Neptune, it's the only harmonic resonance between two planets. There are harmonic resonances between moons of Jupiter and moons of Saturn and stuff, but not between planets. And so it's like maybe Pluto is giving us this more cosmic, you might say spiritual or deeper sense of what are we really here for? What are our dreams? What's going on? And it's not as, it's associated with Scorpio and all of this underworld and all this nasty, goblins and whatever of Halloween. And maybe, that potential is there, but maybe it's more fundamentally about a deeper layers of consciousness related to what you really want out of life. Like when the guy was talking about you can choose heaven or hell and we're floating around. I think that every moment of my life practically, and I don't know many other people that do. And so maybe that has a lot to do with Venus Pluto. I don't know.
Mhm.
But I'm getting some different feelings about Pluto as a result of this research than I had
Yeah.
before. I was already headed in that direction, but
Pluto's
it's
a bit
making me
all over the
feel
place.
stronger.
Was it-
Yeah, Pluto. It's interesting when you said about the Plutonians, the little
Plutinos.
planets. Plutinos, okay. So it's interesting because my mind went to the visual of it's like a blanket instead of just a pinpoint of energy with the planet. It's like the Plutinos maybe make it more of a blanket thing. And we've
Yeah.
heard that multiple times over in astrology that the further out, the more collective the ideas are. I don't know if that's really been validated or not, but it is the furthest planet in our solar system really that we're working with. And so the idea of it affecting us collectively could be a thing too. So it's definitely something to think about, but I can see what you're saying about
More
how
500.
how Pluto is the idea of what Pluto is doing is not necessarily what archetypally we would think it was doing.
Mhm.
Yeah. What
Well,
do you mean by harmonic resonance between Pluto and Neptune?
Okay, I just Googled how many Plutinos, this will answer the
So
question.
did I, yeah.
How-
It's
Yeah, how many
impressive.
Plutinos are there? And the Google AI thing says there are 383 confirmed Plutinos in the 2 to 3 resonance with Neptune. So I mean, it mentions that resonance, even though I'm not even asking about it. Is that
Wow.
Pluto and the orbits of Pluto and Neptune are not separate from each other.
Okay.
They're actually controlling each other's orbit. And whereas, for example, say Jupiter to Saturn, is in a 2.5 times or whatever, like 30 to 12, that is an approximate 30 to 12. And they're not actually controlling each other's orbits. But Neptune and Pluto are in harmonic resonance where their orbits are actually not distinct. So the harmonic resonance of planets is fairly common in the universe, and objects like Jupiter and Saturn, which have a zillion satellites, some of those satellites are in harmonic resonance. So it's very precise. Every 3 orbits of Neptune is 2 orbits of Pluto, and they're yeah. So that's
Interesting.
what it is. And it's something that we don't talk about much in astrology, but I think it's significant. And I think it has something to do with what's going on.
How many of them have
It seems
names?
to
Like,
fit with what this research is showing.
Hmm.
says there's maybe they think there's 10,000 to 100,000 if you count little pieces of gravel that are like a kilometer across.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so I guess there is a
Wow.
cloud. I guess there is a cloud out there.
Yeah, I guess there is a cloud. It might be a cloud. Wow, I didn't know
How many of
that.
them have names though?
Yeah. Wow.
30 to 35 have names.
Hmm.
Those are the ones we care about, I guess.
Yeah. But over 300 identified already. That's a lot of objects traveling at the same exact speed around the sun.
Yeah, and the idea of it just being we are in an energy tapestry. I always go back to that thought of it. We're in an energy
What do I
tapestry.
think of?
It's not above, so below, so much as it is that we're in this intertwined in this. And the idea of all the
Goodness.
Plutinas around makes me think, wow, it's more forceful, but maybe not as focused, right? But it's bigger, it's broader. The stroke of it is broader. So that's very interesting. It'd be interesting to look at what those, I don't know how far apart they are from Pluto, but it'd be interesting to look at and do research on those Plutinas.
I think
to
we should look
see.
up Orcus if we're going to look up any of them next, because there's a new book on that, and there's probably not books on the other ones that have names.
Interesting. Yeah, that would be interesting to look at because is there a subtle difference? And I don't know how far apart they are from Pluto, but is there a subtle difference between them, or
Well,
is it more the
Orcus's
force
orbit
of all?
looks just like Pluto's, except it's kind of like on the other side of the solar system.
Oh, it's on the outer side. Okay. Interesting. Interesting. Yeah.
It seems to be about um, obligations, I guess.
Hmm. Very interesting.
I have a friend that has her Saturn as her ruling planet, and it's conjunct Orcus within like a quarter of a degree. She really, really cares about paying her debts and keeping her word. Obsessive.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I'm
Um,
I'm curious if anybody has any research projects they're thinking about doing, if you haven't shared or thought about it. I'm wondering.
Lots and too many, too many.
Too many.
But if you want to go
Yeah.
for one of those Plutinos, go for Orcus. That's what I would say. What do we start with when we do that? We just look for the sun conjunct the thing.
That's what I would do. It's Sun conjunct whatever other one, and then the other planets. Yeah. I don't know if Santina or Michelle have a different way that they would do it.
yeah, I'll often do
The
sun conjunct the object like Orcus,
the
but
ruling
the
planet
thing
conjunct
is,
it too, maybe.
well, what I do is, use whatever astrology system you want to use. But what I do is I'll do something like Sun conjunct Orcus, and then I make an argument based on the way I do astrology as to how it's working, because it's that, what vibrational systems is it embedded in, and what is Orcus adding to that? Like if the person has a Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, 21 vibe, and it's extremely tight, and Orcus is there, I think about what Sun, Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn in 21 vibe means, and then how is this person different from that? Like what other flavor is added to it? And I do that for every single chart I'm looking at. I see what pattern it's embedded in, because like you said before,
Yes.
Blake, it's absolutely true. It's going to always be embedded in some large pattern because they're exactly aspected.
Yeah.
And so I'm not actually looking at
So
I wouldn't be
very
looking at the Venus
exploratory at that
trine
point.
Pluto. I would be looking at what vibrational system is a Venus trine Pluto embedded in. But that's just me. You have to go by what your system of astrology is. But you don't have to, the beautiful thing about extreme case sampling is you don't
Mm.
have to be stuck with those two planets.
Well, if there's already the supposed hypothesis for what it means, then you can attempt to go beyond the exploratory part.
Exactly. That's brilliant. If you have a hypothesis, use it and see if it
Probably not,
works.
like you guys tend to come up with a different idea for what things mean than what has generally been accepted. So
Right. Exactly. We
Yeah, we
do.
let the research guide us or the things guide us. Yeah.
Yeah, but I always encourage everyone, do what you think. Like if you think Venus is harmonious relationships, or you think it's romantic, or whatever you think it is, see if it's true. See what's happening and see if the data confirms it. And
How is
then,
the database got on information for people who have quit doing drugs? Is it got much in the database for that kind of information?
I think it does.
It does? That would be another good one.
There are categories, if you go onto the database, Astro database website, there are categories for tons of different things, you know, like you. So I would imagine there probably is with that one. I haven't looked it up, but yeah. I think
I
there's
can come up with
alcoholism for sure. Alcoholism,
all
I've
kinds
seen
of
that because there's
hypotheses, but
Gauquelin data on that even. Yeah,
I don't have the
but
practice at doing the research like you guys have. I haven't really done any of it. I do it my own way.
yeah, well, it's exciting to learn different ways and how you can even incorporate it or enhance your own, you know, yeah.
Mhm.
I'm
One of
looking
the
at
things I'm always interested in is, after all of these various discoveries are made using extreme case sampling, are there, can some of those discoveries, can we then go back and do statistical tests? Come at them from this other perspective in order to get more confidence in the
Oh,
results.
we definitely want to do that before we're done.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, that's what happened with the bipolar disorder. What,
exactly.
we started with Giselle's clients, then we took some extreme cases of her clients, then we built an Astro signature, we perfected it with 900 cases, then we found 90 more cases and we tested against it. But by the time we got to that, we had a very clear hypothesis, and we were able to
Yeah,
do
and
statistical
it can
calculus.
go back in the other direction too. You can begin with things that you have found to be statistically significant, maybe a certain aspect between the two plants, and then you can extend that research by exploring that aspect with extreme case sampling.
Oh, wow. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so I think these are both traditional statistics and extreme case sampling. They're both very valuable techniques that can be complementary to one another.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
definitely.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Did you guys come up with series when you were doing any of your eating disorder stuff at all?
Series,
Series, yeah.
yeah, you're muted, Michelle.
Oh, sorry. Series did show in 31 vibe, but when we put it to the statistical test, it actually dropped the score a little bit. So that's another layer of the eating disorders that I would like to go through. It was like Ceres, Neptune, North Node,
Do
31 vibe.
you ever use the Uranian planets when you do the stuff?
No, I have not
It's like,
anyway.
I think Ceres Admetus would probably be a good one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we
Thank you.
spent a lot of time on series because it's supposed to be related, to nutrition and stuff like that.
Yeah, it
Mm-hmm.
does definitely seem to be about food.
Yeah,
How I
and
think of it.
like like Michelle said, sometimes we saw little hints of it, but then we tested again, it disappeared. But we really looked at series over and over and over again,
Yeah,
and it didn't work.
and you
It
couldn't
just
make
didn't
it
work.
work.
Couldn't
That's
make it work.
weird.
No.
That's weird,
And you
right?
Couldn't make it work.
You saw Vesta more, right? If I remember
Yeah,
correctly,
Vesta
you
is
saw
very
Vesta more,
strong.
which
Yes.
was, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, Vesta is
that was
very
interesting.
strong.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but I did extreme case sampling on series, and what I came up with that the people had in common, and I've made YouTube videos about it, is that series is about how we meet personal, let me say that again, the social systems we set up to meet personal needs.
Mm-hmm.
Like we all need to eat food. how do we get it? What do we do? You know, and we make babies. If we don't, the society will die. How do you
So
take care of them? How do you?
which kind of eating disorders did you guys come up with on that particular study again?
The disorder did all eating disorders, ranging from anorexia to bulimia, to people but there were only two people in there, Chris Farley and someone else who were just people that gorged and binged themselves. And
Anorexia would be like just not eating.
Most of them actually had a combination of anorexia and bulimia. So like binge and then purge was the greater percentage of those eating disorders. It seems to be the more common thing, but yes, they were all there. I was waiting for the research to kind of separate itself out, but it didn't at this point. Like are these patterns or these vibrations or these configurations that show solely for people who are strictly anorexic, and something different to show up for people who have the bulimia piece, and maybe something different to show up for people who just continuously binge, but it didn't shake out that way. At least at this point. I think research comes in layers. I think that's an important thing to add on. I think, and even in the eating disorder research, it was just like I pulled back the first layer. It's like an onion. It's like we just keep on going. Even in what it is that we discovered in this little Venus Pluto thing that we did today, there's layers to everything. I think it comes in waves.
Would you do the
And
Venus
that's the
Pluto
beauty of research.
again with more harmonics? Like get into the fourth and the fifth harmonic
For eating disorders?
for the Venus Pluto?
Pluto. Yeah, certainly. I mean, as we know, like the trine turns into a conjunction when we look at three vibe. And, this may look very different in other places, but here's just the building blocks that we presented today to get everyone off the ground and running.
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to maybe just to
Mhm.
continue the inner planets, at least with Venus,
Yes,
doing
see
that
what
or the
happens.
other aspects, and then
Mhm.
even doing 3 planets, because that's
Mhm.
obviously it's
Right,
something we have studied, but it would be another layer to it,
layer.
and the vibrations.
Yes,
And you could study Venus Pluto forever, like just in that
exactly.
sense with
Yeah.
all of the vibrations and midpoints and isotraps. I mean, you could just go on and adding other things, of course, but it's there's a lot to it. So the very simple, basic things, I think is always good to start with that and then just keep going.
And then
VA
add
has a nice framework. There's been tons of, years of work done on that, mostly by Santino, but also by people like Michele and myself and other researchers. So it's a good framework if you're gonna do something that's like a few different elements. That's good too. If you want to use the framework of VA, that's a good starting point for you to understand, to add something to it. We didn't want to go just strictly VA on this because we wanted it to be
Right.
accessible for anybody, but you definitely
Mhm.
can layer on onto it, and having the good starting point is key.
Right.
So you would rather do different planets with Pluto for your next one?
I would probably do different planets with Pluto, or and like add a third planet, and then see what's going on with that. And then look in vibrations might be the next level, because it does take time. I know we did this in a couple hours, but it does take time to sit there and just going through it and then creating everything. It's just some patience in that. I don't mind doing it. I love it. It's something that speaks to my soul, but because then you get excited when you start seeing it, it's like, oh, this is really fun. And
Yeah.
it, gives you, I don't care, like you said, Santino, I don't care about proving astrology. I want to know if it works. If it works, awesome. Like, just keep going. That's my
If you were
mentality
a
with it as
machine, even
well.
if you were a machine, you wouldn't get more than a few hundred done a year, though. That's for sure.
Right. You can only do so much.
Mhm.
That's why it's so good to be in collaboration with everybody, and like a place like a Cosmobiology Institute, because it gives us an opportunity to get much more thought done and much more understanding of what's going on, collectively.
Yeah, I want to go back to a question that Blake had earlier, that Kai put into the chat, the link to the Astrodatabank categories, because you asked about people using drugs, and the number of categories that Astrodatabank has is phenomenal. And one of them is abused drugs. And those same
Mm.
categories are in the Sirius software. I pulled up abused drugs in Sirius, which is going to be similar to doing it in Astrodatabank. And there are 342 people with AA data who are flagged as abusing drugs. So that's a lot of people, 342 with AA data.
Wow.
So drug abuse, of course, there's different kinds of drug abuse, and then you could further break it down. But right off the bat, we have 612 total, and out of that 612, 342 are AA data for quote drug abuse.
Yeah, lots of abused drugs. That's definitely a prolific thing in reality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, the Astrodatabank categories are wonderful
I mean, I
because
would
there's so many.
hypothesize that Bacchus has to do with drug addiction.
What has to do
That
with
what?
drug addiction?
Bacchus the asteroid.
Oh,
Oh. I didn't,
Yeah.
I didn't even know that asteroid.
mm.
Yeah, well, that's something you could test. I mean, you could look at Bacchus conjunct planets or in 3-planet patterns or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, I'm not too sure. It's kind of all over the place, but definitely I think it has to do with Bacchus.
So
Yeah.
Quitting
my,
more specifically though, I would say quitting goes with Saturn, Bacchus midpoint type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
with my ADHD research, I just looked what have people already done, astrologers already done. I came across a book that has Hidalgo. And they're saying Hidalgo, the asteroid, is the ADHD one. I haven't found that yet in what I'm doing with the
Yeah,
research. I
I know
haven't
that
found
one.
that to be as
I haven't
specific
used it
yet,
a whole lot,
but
but I know that one.
yeah. And I also wondered because I learned about the orbit of Hidalgo. The tilt of it is much more eccentric than the rest of the plane of the planets that are on. So I'm like, I wondered if that was part of it, if that was why they chose Hidalgo, because it's more like it's a comet than it is an asteroid, although they call it an asteroid. But it's more like a comet and it goes more north and south than
Well,
it does just on the same plane as the rest of the planets or asteroids. So it's interesting, but you never know what asteroids are going to actually pop up and have something there. So, but it's definitely something you can research.
Okay, well, our time is almost up. It's almost 3 o'clock Eastern time.
the main belt asteroid, but it does have a high eccentricity.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not much we can do with just 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has high, Hidalgo has very high inclination and very eccentric. Like you say, it's almost like a comet. Wow.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I did when in doing the ADHD research. I said still collecting data for it. I wanted to learn, what did other people talk about? What did they find? Is this going to give me clues to what I'm not going to let that lead me, but it's something, and so understanding that and all the intricacies of the actual thing that I'm studying, that was some part of it as well. So that's why when you always say, Santino, to study what you love, research what you love, I think that's important.
Yeah.
Something that speaks to you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing I'm amazed at is just how many people out there are doing research at all different levels. I mean, you
Fun.
have professional statisticians doing research to publish in correlation, people doing research for Cosmobiology Institute. But you also have, I discover more and more, just individuals here and there who are just sitting down on their own, doing what research they can. And it's a good sign. Something seems to be driving this impetus in people to really engage with research now.
It's Pluto, isn't it? Pluto does the research.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Wants to
I
look,
can't wait to see more. Yeah.
yes, wants to look beneath the hood to see
Mhm.
what works.
Yeah, and Christopher is now on the
Yeah.
Cosmobiology Institute board, and he's now starting to connect the different research groups, what's going on with ESAR, NCGR, AAGB, individual researchers. So this is all really helping build, a global community of people interested in sorting out what astrology is and getting them to relate to each other. And we've got lots of plans with Cosmobiology Institute and also, excuse me, staying in close contact with other groups to keep this movement going forward.
Mhm. Christopher, do you know anybody working on financial research?
Well, I know of people, Ray Merriman.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I predicted that stock market was going to crash on April
Oh, did
7th,
you? I've
but
been
I didn't.
working on,
I told
yeah.
like one person, so
Interesting.
my evidence is pretty sketchy. It was like a month ahead of time, though. I mean, I knew Trump was going to have his tariffs start, so that was like, okay, I'll go have a look past that date. So it wasn't like super smart of me to be able to figure it out, but it was there. It will repeat, the exact same thing will repeat in 11 years, and it doesn't happen that often on average.
Mhm. Yeah, the cycles are really interesting. The cycles and watching the markets or whatever commodity you're looking at.
Right.
It's
Yeah, the
pretty
market just
interesting.
goes
It's
up and down all
totally
the
different than
time,
the psychological
and
part, but
there's not
yeah.
enough astrology things to tell you each day, like, is it going to go up today? Is it going to go down today? You don't know. But a big move, you might be able to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we've had a
You're
lot of quiet
interested to know
people.
what it was. I can just tell you, it was the Jupiter Hades midpoint and the Mars Admetus midpoint were both at like 0 Cancer.
Oh. Interesting.
Interesting.
The rules for planetary pictures will tell you what those mean. It's like the stock market goes down, basically. Financial bad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
And there's not enough data if you go back over the centuries. Stock market hasn't been around that long, and it doesn't happen often enough.
Yeah, some things are just that. Yeah.
okay, we've had a lot of quiet people. Anybody else want to add anything, mention something, ask something? Are we all good for now?
We have to be good now. We've got 1 minute left.
Well, we can go over a little bit. Um,
Oh, you've been doing this on this YouTube channel, Cosmobiology Institute. You've been doing it every month on, I thought it was the 4th Tuesday when I just looked at it, but you said 3rd Tuesday?
It's the 4th. I think we had to
The 4th. Okay, that
put an
is the
error
4th
in there.
then.
It is the 4th.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that was my mistake.
I don't know if I signed up for it on the webpage or not. I haven't been to it yet. So
It is the 4th.
how does how do you get the Zoom meeting for that one?
You can go to the
If you,
website and make sure you're on the mailing list. Go to
Mhm.
cosmology.org And then there's a tab there for contact or something. And
Cosmobiology.org.
yeah, cosmobiology.org. You can all do this to stay, you know, to get notified of
I
when things are
probably did
happening.
it already and forgot.
Yeah, but you can put your name in again if you're not sure if you're there. Cosmobiology.org, I'm gonna go there now and go to click on the contact tab. And then there's a place to enter your name and
And you-
email address, and you'll get the reminder. The research meeting on the fourth Tuesday is always at the same website address. So once you receive that website address, if you hold on to it, you can just go there on the fourth Tuesday. It's at 8 p.m. Eastern time for an hour and a half. And the meetings on the fourth Tuesday are to discuss anything you want to discuss regarding research. Are you interested in doing research? You have questions about procedures or how to get started, anything you want to ask? And
Sort
Christopher
of
and
a
I host
how to
that.
do research sorts of questions um, rather than what kind of research, what does stuff mean kind of thing. It's more of a how to do research questions.
Yeah, how to do research. If you're interested in research and you have a question or, about research, how to do research, or you planning to do research, it's
Yes.
about doing research, helping people conduct research
Mhm.
or understand research. Yeah, and so, yeah, it's an opportunity to meet, and then we can all brainstorm together. Christopher and I lead it, but, different people have information on how to, where can I get a database? How should I frame the question? What should I do a statistical analysis? Should I do qualitative or quantitative? What are my options? How would I go about, just anything you want about using modern research methods? We're there to sort through that. Yeah.
Well, that's tough teaching people that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope this was helpful, inspiring you to get on your own research project or give you the beginning tools and building blocks to get that going and to move it forward. And we look forward to the next event.
Okay, thanks, everyone. Thank you, Michele. Thank you, Starlene.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for being here. And hope to see you on a Thursday night research meeting, or in about 2 months or so, we'll have another special program. Anything you would like, it's a nonprofit organization to benefit research in astrology. So, we're all a part of it. Okay, thanks again.
Thank
Have a good
you.
All right.
afternoon or evening, whatever time it is for you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye all.